Chapter 1. Mask of Desire. The bedroom flickered with amber light, candle flames dancing across velvet drapes that Elena had hung last autumn. Halloween decorations, paper bats, gossamer webs cast shifting shadows on the walls, turning our sanctuary into something both familiar and strange. I watched her reflection in the vanity mirror as she applied dark liner to her eyes, transforming herself into someone mysterious, someone I didn't quite recognize. "Zip me up?" she asked, her voice carrying that breathless quality I'd fallen in love with 14 years ago. I crossed the room, my fingers finding the small metal tab at the base of her spine. The black lace gown clung to her curves like a second skin, and as I drew the zipper upward, my knuckles grazed the warmth of her flesh. A familiar heat stirred in my chest, possessive, primal. This woman was mine. Had been mine since we were barely more than kids ourselves. "You're going to drive every man at that festival insane," I murmured against her neck, breathing in her jasmine perfume. She laughed, but it sounded different somehow. Higher, more nervous than pleased. "That's the point of Halloween, isn't it? To be someone else for a night?" I caught her gaze in the mirror. Her pupils were dilated, pulse visible in the hollow of her throat. Excitement, I told myself. Just the thrill of the masquerade. But something cold flickered through my gut, a whisper of unease I couldn't name. 14 years, I said, turning her to face me. 14 years of these festivals, and you still get that look in your eyes. What look? She tilted her head, playing innocent, but her breath quickened under my hands. Like you're about to step off a cliff. I pulled her close, feeling the familiar give of her body against mine. Like you're craving something dangerous. Her laughter turned breathy. Maybe I am. The festival promises anonymous rights, after all. A chance to shed our skins, even just for one night. Her fingers traced my jaw. Don't you ever feel it, Ethan? That need to escape the routine? The word hit like a slap. Routine. Was that what we'd become? I thought of our life predictable mornings, efficient evenings, passion scheduled around Zoe's bedtime and Noah's feedings. The fire we'd once stoked with reckless abandon now banked to manageable embers. No, I lied, sealing it with a kiss that bordered on punishment. My tongue claimed hers with possessive intent, reminding myself that what we had was enough. Had to be enough. When I pulled back, her lips were swollen, eyes glassy. "Then let's go lose ourselves in the chaos," she whispered. "Together." I helped her into her mask, a creation of black feathers and silver filigree that transformed her into some nocturnal enchantress. Mine was simpler, a half-mask of dark leather that made me look like a veiled predator. Appropriate, I thought, studying our reflections. Beauty and the Beast heading into the night. Her hand found mine as we left, fingers interlacing with practiced ease, but her grip felt different tonight, tighter, almost desperate. Like she was holding on or letting go, I couldn't tell which. The palace hall swallowed us whole. Crimson candles lined every surface, their light transforming elegant guests into writhing shadows. The air hung thick with incense and perfume, with sweat and wine, with the musk of bodies pressed too close. Drums pulsed from hidden speakers, a rhythm that mimicked a heartbeat, or maybe it was just my own heart I heard, thundering against my ribs as we waded into the crush. "It's magnificent," Elena breathed, and I felt her body sway against mine, pulled by the music like a tide. I drew her onto the dance floor, one hand spanning her waist, the other clasping hers. We moved together with the ease of years, her curves fitting against my angles with geometric precision. She'd worn this dress for me, I told myself, the way it dipped low at her back, the slit that climbed her thigh, all for my eyes, my touch. But as we turned, I caught other eyes on her. Dozens of them, hungry behind their masks. "Feel that?" she asked, breath hot against my ear. "What?" "The energy. The freedom of anonymity." Her hips rolled against mine in a way that made my teeth clench. "No one knows who we are here. We could be anyone. But we're not anyone," I said, tightening my grip. "We're us." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "For tonight, let's pretend we're not." Before I could respond, a figure materialized from the crowd like smoke given form. tall, dressed in black silk that caught the candlelight, wearing a mask of curved horns that made him look like some Renaissance devil. His movements carried an unnatural grace, predatory and hypnotic. "Forgive my intrusion," he said, voice like velvet dragged over gravel. His eyes visible through the mask locked onto Elena with laser focus. "But I couldn't help noticing the veiled fire in your companion." Elena's pulse jumped beneath my fingers. "We're dancing," I said flatly. "I can see that." The stranger's smile was all teeth. "But the festival celebrates shared pleasures, does it not? One dance, enchantress. Let me show you the rite's true rhythm." He extended a hand toward Elena's pale fingers, elegant as a pianist's. I waited for her to refuse, to press closer to me, to remember whose arms she belonged in. Instead, she hesitated. That single moment of hesitation cut deeper than any blade. "Just one dance," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "It's Halloween, Ethan. It's tradition." She slipped from my grasp before I could tighten my hold, her fingers finding the stranger's with a fluidity that made my stomach turn. He pulled her into a tango, their bodies aligning with the ease of practiced lovers, though I knew they'd never met before. Didn't I? I retreated to the shadows, heart hammering in my throat. Watched as he spun her, dipped her, his hands lingering at her waist, her hip, the small of her back. Watched as she threw her head back and laughed, a sound of pure abandon I hadn't heard from her in months, maybe years. "You're Ethan Caldwell, aren't you?" I turned to find another masked woman at my elbow, Fiona, one of Elena's work friends, though tonight she'd transformed herself into something feline and predatory. "That's Julian Noir," she continued, nodding toward the devil dancing with my wife. "He's notorious at these festivals." "Notorious how?" My voice came out rougher than intended. Fiona's smile turned knowing. "For unmasking hidden cravings. He has a gift for finding what people secretly want and giving it to them. Temporarily, of course. He's a collector of moments. Elena doesn't want anything from him." But even as I said it, I watched my wife's body mold against the stranger's, watched the way her fingers clutched his shoulders, watched the flush creep up her throat. "Maybe not consciously," Fiona said, "but we all have shadows, Ethan. Parts of ourselves we keep locked away because they don't fit the life we've built. Julian finds those shadows and brings them into the light." She touched my arm, her perfume cloying. "For one night, just enough to satisfy the hunger without destroying everything." The music swelled. Elena and Julian moved together like they'd been choreographed, his mouth close to her ear, whispering something that made her shiver. Made her eyes slide closed. Made her body arch into his in a way that felt obscene despite the crowd around them. Jealousy bloomed hot and vicious in my chest. Not the clean anger of righteousness, but something darker. Something that tasted like humiliation and inadequacy and rage. "Where are they going?" The words came out strangled, because they were leaving. Moving toward one of the draped alcoves at the hall's perimeter, where shadows pooled thick and secret. Where couples went to shed their masks and their inhibitions in relative privacy. "To continue the rite, I imagine," Fiona said. "Don't worry, it's just dancing, just fantasy. What happens at the festival stays at the festival." But I knew better. Could see it in the set of Elena's shoulders, the way she glanced back once, just once, before disappearing into the darkness with him. Not a look of guilt, a look of hunger finally being fed. I don't remember much of the next hour. Just fragments, sharp as broken glass. The festival's chaos swirling around me while I stood frozen. Fiona's voice envious now. She left with him for the unveiling. The forbidden rite. Lucky her. The walk back to our hotel suite, each step heavier than the last. The empty room mocking me with its champagne on ice, its rose petals scattered across Egyptian cotton sheets. All the romance I'd arranged for after the festival, for when we'd return flushed and happy and fall into each other with the passion the night had stoked. Her black lingerie laid out on the bed. The lace I'd bought her last month, that she'd never worn for me. She'd brought it here, planned to wear it, just not for me. The scent of her jasmine perfume still clinging to the fabric, mixing with my rage until I couldn't tell one from the other. My hands shredded the lace without thought, reducing $200 of silk and promised to ribbons. I found myself on my knees beside the bed, breathing like I'd run a marathon. The room spun. My phone buzzed a text from Elena finally after 2 hours of silence. Having an amazing time. Don't wait up. Don't wait up. Like she was out with girlfriends. Like she hadn't just chosen another man over me. Over us. Over 14 years of promises and passion and the life we'd built. The rage crystallized into something cold and sharp. Purposeful. If she wanted to play these games, fine. I'd play them better. Julian Noir wasn't the only one who could unmask hidden cravings. I'd find his weakness his confidant, his lover, whoever held his leash, and I'd seduce them with the same calculated precision he'd used on my wife. I'd film every moment, every gasp and moan and surrender. Then I'd destroy him with it the way he was destroying me, an eye for an eye, a betrayal for a betrayal. The decision settled over me like a second skin. I texted Luna, our regular babysitter, asking her to keep the kids overnight. Some emergency with Elena, I said. Not entirely a lie. Then I grabbed my things and headed for Zoe's room down the hall, a smaller suite I'd booked for our daughter's eventual sleepover with her friend. I couldn't stay here, surrounded by the ghost of what Elena and I used to be. In the new room, I sat in darkness, broken only by a jack-o'-lantern's grin. My phone glowed in my hands as I scrolled through Julian Noir's social media public accounts showcasing his art gallery, his festival involvement, his taste for the erotic and dangerous. There, in several photos, a woman, always just at the edge of frame, never tagged. But the way he looked at her in one unguarded shot told me everything. She was his weakness. I began composing a message, fingers steady despite the fury singing through my veins. An invitation to meet. An offer of artistic collaboration. Bait tailored to the gallery scene we both frequented. This was justice, I told myself. This was taking back power Elena had stolen when she chose to unmask herself, her real self, apparently for a stranger in a devil's mask. The message sent with a soft whoosh. I sat back, waiting, planning, imagining the moment I'd watch Julian's face as I revealed what I'd done, how I'd taken something precious from him the way he'd taken Elena from me. The jack-o'-lantern's smile seemed to widen in the darkness. At 3:30 a.m., sharp knocking shattered my dark reverie. I opened the door to find 2 police officers, their flashlight beams cutting through the fog that had rolled in from somewhere, Officers Vega and Kim, according to their badges, young but carrying themselves with the gravity of bad news. "Mr. Caldwell," Officer Vega asked, "we need you to come with us." My mind went immediately to the kids. What happened? "Are Zoe and Noah?" "Your children are fine, sir." Officer Kim stepped forward, her expression carefully neutral. "It's about your wife, Elena Caldwell. There's been an incident at the festival." The rage that had sustained me for hours evaporated, replaced by something colder. "What kind of incident?" "She was injured during one of the ritual celebrations. We need you to come to the station to answer some questions, and then we'll take you to see her at Eclipse Ward." Injured. The word didn't compute. Elena was supposed to be lost in passion with Julian Noir, betraying me with every touch. She wasn't supposed to be hurt. Wasn't supposed to need me. "How badly?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. The officers exchanged glances. "Perhaps we should discuss this at the station, sir." But Officer Vega's eyes held something I recognized, had seen in my own mirror just hours ago. The specific pain of betrayal. And beneath it, the ugly satisfaction of watching someone else suffer what you'd suffered. "It was a rite," he said quietly, against protocol. "One that involved blades. She's stable but marked. And the man she was with, Julian Noir, was attacked separately by someone seeking vengeance." Vengeance. The word hung in the air like a curse. I thought of my text message sent into the darkness, of the plan I'd been cultivating, the seduction I'd been plotting, of how close I'd come to becoming exactly what I now knew Julianne Noir to be. Someone who weaponized desire. "Take me to her," I said. But as I followed the officers into the fog-shrouded night, my phone buzzed. The woman from Julianne's photos had responded to my message. "Tomorrow night. Let's discuss your proposition." I deleted the text, then restored it, then just stared at it as the patrol car pulled away from the hotel, carrying me toward Elena and whatever rights card truth awaited at Eclipse Ward. Behind my mask, still on my face, I realized I couldn't tell if I was relieved she'd been hurt before she could fully betray me, or devastated that someone had marked her before I could decide whether to save us or destroy everything in revenge. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe we were both already too scarred to recognize each other beneath the masks we'd worn for 14 years. The festival's distant drums still echoed through the streets, celebrating Halloween's promise that beneath every mask lies another mask, and another, until you can no longer remember which face is real. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Curse. The patrol car's heater blasted stale air that smelled of coffee and institutional cleaning products. I sat in the back, watching streetlights strobe across my hands still clenched into fists, knuckles white. The officers rode in silence, their radio crackling occasionally with Halloween night's usual chaos: drunken disorderlies, noise, complaints, a reported assault at another festival venue. My phone burned in my pocket. That message, that proposition, tomorrow night. Let's discuss your proposition. I imagined it playing out. Meeting Julian's woman, whoever she was in some dimly lit gallery space. Offering her wine, conversation, the slow seduction of shared artistic interests. My hands on her skin, her breath catching as I whispered the things she wanted to hear. The camera hidden, recording everything, every moment of her surrender that would mirror Elena's. The fantasy twisted into something darker. Elena's face replacing hers. Julian's hands, where mine should have been. Her back arching, mouth opening in pleasure I hadn't given her in, how long? Months, a year? When had maintenance replaced passion? When had we stopped devouring each other and started simply coexisting? "Mr. Caldwell?" Officer Vega's voice snapped me back. We'd stopped. Not at the station at my house. The Halloween decorations Elena had hung last week mocked me from the porch. Smiling pumpkins. Friendly ghosts. The children's joy made manifest. Zoe. Noah. God, what was I going to tell them? "We can conduct the interview here," Kim said, stepping out. "Given the circumstances." The circumstances. My wife in a hospital bed, marked by ritual blades during whatever sick game she'd played with Julian Noir. The man who'd taken her into those shadowed alcoves, who'd touched her with hands I wanted to break. Bone by bone. Inside, the house felt like a crime scene. The fog had followed us, pressing against the windows like something alive and watching. I didn't turn on the main lights, just the lamp in the living room, casting shadows that danced like festival performers. "Tell me what happened," I said, lowering myself onto the couch. The same couch where Elena and I had made love 3 nights ago. Perfunctory. Quick. Her eyes closed the whole time, thinking of what? Who? Officer Vega pulled out a notebook, his movements precise. "Your wife was found at approximately 2:15 a.m. in a private chamber at the Nightshade Festival. She'd been..." He paused, choosing words carefully. "Ritually marked, shallow lacerations across her inner thighs and lower abdomen, consistent with consensual right play that escalated." Consensual. The word made bile rise in my throat. "She was conscious when we arrived," Kim added, her voice softer, more human. "In shock, but able to communicate. She asked for you repeatedly. Now she asked for me." After she texted, "Don't wait up," while some masked stranger carved his ownership into her flesh. And Julian Noir? My voice came out flat. Dead. Vega's expression shifted, something predatory flickering behind his professional mask. Found in his vehicle approximately an hour later. Unconscious. Multiple stab wounds, also ritualistic in nature. Defensive wounds suggest he tried to fight off his attacker. Good, I said before I could stop myself. The officers exchanged glances. Mr. Caldwell, Kim leaned forward. Where were you between 1 and 3 a.m.? In Zoe's hotel room alone. I met her eyes. Planning my divorce. It wasn't entirely true. I'd been planning something much darker than divorce. But the hotel's keycard records would confirm my alibi. I hadn't left that room. Hadn't done anything except fantasize about the revenge I still might take. Can anyone corroborate that? Check the hotel security footage. I went straight to the room after watching my wife choose another man, after destroying her lingerie, after the rage consumed everything rational and left only the hunger for retribution. After leaving the festival around midnight. Vega made notes. And your relationship with your wife? How would you characterize it currently? A laugh escaped me, bitter and sharp. Apparently not as solid as I thought. Any history of violence between you? No. The word came out hard. Never. I loved her. Love her. 14 years, 2 kids, a life we built together. I thought... My throat closed. I thought we were happy. Kim's expression softened with recognition. She knew this pain. Had worn it herself, maybe. Sometimes people we love surprise us, she said quietly. Make choices that seem to come from nowhere, but have been building beneath the surface for years. Routine, I muttered. She said she wanted to escape the routine. Did she indicate any intent to be unfaithful? I thought about the lingerie, the way she'd laughed in Julian's arms, the hungry look in her eyes as she disappeared into shadow with him. She indicated she wanted something I apparently wasn't giving her, I said. Adventure, danger, the thrill of being someone else for a night. My fists clenched again. Guess she found it. Vega's pen stilled. You sound angry, Mr. Caldwell. Of course I'm angry. I stood, pacing the room, because sitting felt impossible. My wife let another man mark her like she was his property, while I waited like an idiot with champagne and rose petals thinking we'd reconnect after the festival. I spun to face them. But anger doesn't mean I hurt anyone. I hurt me. I sat in a hotel room and let it consume me, but I didn't act on it. Liar, a voice whispered. You already started acting. You sent that message. You began the seduction that would mirror hers. We need to ask, Kim said. Given the nature of the crime, we're looking at everyone in both their circles. Julian's attacker, do you have any leads? We're pursuing several. Vega closed his notebook. The injuries suggest someone with personal motivation, someone seeking retribution for a perceived wrong. Someone like me, his tone implied. Or someone like me, but braver. Someone who'd acted on the rage I'd only cultivated in darkness. Can I see her now? The words came out raw. Because despite everything, despite the betrayal burning through my veins, like acid, she was still Elena. Still the mother of my children. Still the woman I'd pledged my life to 14 years ago. Still mine, some possessive part of me insisted. Even marked by another man's blades. Eclipse Ward is expecting you, Kim said, standing. We'll drive you. I'll take my own car. I needed the space. Needed to decide what mask I'd wear when I saw her. The concerned husband, the wounded lover, or the man already plotting his revenge. They left me with warnings to stay available for follow-up questions. The moment their patrol car disappeared into fog, I pulled out my phone. The message from Julian's woman still glowed on the screen. Tomorrow night. Let's discuss your proposition. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could cancel. Tell her I'd made a mistake. Walk away from this path before I became something I wouldn't recognize in the mirror. But then I imagined Elena's face as Julian touched her. Imagined her consent to those ritual markings, the way she must have gasped as blade met flesh, the perverse intimacy of letting someone wound you in the name of pleasure. Had she gasped my name? Or his? I typed, "The Crimson Gallery. 8 p.m. Come alone." Sent it before I could reconsider. Then I grabbed my keys and headed for Eclipse Ward, where my wife waited, probably expecting forgiveness. Expecting me to be the good husband who'd hold her hand and tell her everything would be okay. She had no idea what I'd become in the hours since she'd texted, "Don't wait up." No idea that she'd awakened something in me that couldn't be put back to sleep. Eclipse Ward sat on the city's eastern edge, a modern glass and steel structure that caught the pre-dawn light in angles that hurt to look at directly. Appropriate, I thought, that a place dealing with trauma should cut like a blade. I parked in the near-empty lot and sat for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled. Through the windshield, I could see the hospital's lit windows, small squares of yellow warmth in all that cold glass. Somewhere in there, Elena lay in a bed, her body marked by ritual and desire gone wrong, or gone right, depending on her perspective. The thought made my jaw clench so hard my teeth ached. Inside, the hospital smelled of antiseptic, and something underneath it, something organic and wrong, like flowers left too long in stagnant water. A nurse at the reception desk directed me to the third floor without looking up from her tablet. "Room 317, but she's resting. You'll need to keep your visit brief." The elevator played soft jazz that felt obscene against my fractured thoughts. I caught my reflection in the polished doors, still wearing last night's clothes, tie loosened, hair disheveled. I looked like what I was, a man who'd spent the night wrestling with demons and losing. The third-floor hallway stretched before me, lined with doors hiding private agonies. Somewhere a machine beeped steadily. A television murmured behind one door, a woman's muted crying behind another. Room 317's door stood slightly ajar. I paused, hand on the frame, suddenly terrified of what I'd see, of how I'd react. Would I want to comfort her or hurt her? Would the sight of those ritual marks fill me with protective rage or vindictive satisfaction? "Mr. Caldwell?" A doctor emerged from the room, young, exhausted, name tag reading, "Dr. Patel. She's been asking for you. Fair warning, she's still in shock. Don't be surprised if she's not entirely coherent. How bad are the injuries?" "Superficial from a medical standpoint. No organ damage, no major vessels compromised. But the blood loss was significant, and the psychological trauma. She met my eyes, and I saw judgment there. These festival rites can blur lines. Consent gets complicated when drugs and alcohol and crowd mentality are involved." "Are you saying she didn't consent?" "I'm saying consent is a spectrum, Mr. Caldwell, and sometimes people agree to things in the moment they'd never choose in daylight." She moved past me, then paused. She kept saying she tried to stop it, that it went too far. Take that for what it's worth. She tried to stop it. The words should have filled me with protective fury. Should have made me want to find Julian Noir and finish what his attacker had started. Instead, they just confused the rage into something more complex, more painful. Because if she'd tried to stop it, that meant she'd started it willingly. Had wanted it, at least initially. Had chosen to let him mark her before deciding she'd had enough. I pushed into the room. The curtains were drawn against the approaching dawn, leaving only the glow of monitors and a small bedside lamp. Elena lay propped on pillows, her face turned toward the window. Even in profile, I could see the hollows beneath her eyes, the paleness of her skin against the white sheets. She wore a hospital gown that revealed the bandages peeking from beneath white gauze wrapped around her abdomen, her thighs, evidence of what she'd let Julian do to her in the name of breaking our routine. "Elena." She turned at my voice, and I saw her face fully for the first time. Her lips were swollen from kissing, I realized with a sick lurch. From kissing him. Her eyes held a wildness, pupils still dilated from whatever drugs they'd given her for the pain, or the drugs she'd taken before the rite, to make it easier to betray me. Ethan. My name came out as a sob. Oh God, Ethan, I'm so sorry. Don't! The word cut through her apology like one of Julian's blades. Don't apologize yet. Not until I know exactly what you're apologizing for. She flinched as if I'd struck her. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But it wasn't. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I tried to stop him, but you started it. I moved closer, my shadow falling across her bed. You went with him. Willingly. You let him touch you, kiss you, mark you. The stopping came later, Elena, after you'd already broken us. Tears tracked down her cheeks, and part of me, the part that had loved her for 14 years, wanted to wipe them away, wanted to crawl into that narrow bed and hold her until the world made sense again. But the other part, the part born in that hotel room surrounded by shredded lingerie, wanted to see her suffer, wanted her to feel a fraction of the humiliation and rage that had consumed me. I don't expect you to forgive me, she whispered. I don't deserve forgiveness, but please, please don't leave me alone with this. I'm so scared, Ethan. What he did, what I let him do, I feel like I'm drowning. You should have thought of that before you texted me not to wait up. Her face crumpled. I know. I was drunk on the festival, on the fantasy of being someone else, someone exciting and dangerous instead of just a wife and mother who's forgotten how to be anything else. Is that what I made you? My voice dropped to something dangerous. A prison warden of routine? Was I really so terrible that you needed another man's blade to feel alive? No. God, no, you've been perfect. That's the problem. She struggled to sit up, wincing as the movement pulled at her wounds. You've been the perfect husband, the perfect father, and I've been drowning in perfection, in the sameness of our days, in the way we've smoothed all the edges off our marriage until there's nothing left to grip onto. So you found someone with sharper edges? I pulled the visitor's chair close, lowering myself into it so our faces were level. Someone who could cut you deep enough to feel something again. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Elena? Because from where I stood, watching you disappear into the shadows with him, it looked exactly like that. It looked like you choosing him over me, over us, over everything we built. She opened her mouth, closed it. The monitors beeped steadily, marking time neither of us knew how to fill. I don't have an excuse, she finally said. I have reasons, the routine, the way we've both been going through motions, the way I've felt invisible even when you're looking right at me. But reasons aren't excuses. I chose to go with him. I chose to let him touch me, kiss me, take me to that chamber. And when the blades came out, her voice broke. I should have stopped it then, should have said no, but I was so desperate to feel something, anything, that I let it go too far. The doctor said you tried to stop it. I did. When I realized when the pain became real instead of theoretical, I told him to stop, begged him. But she shuddered. He said stopping wasn't part of the rite, that I'd consented to the full experience, that the marks would remind me of my choice every time I looked in the mirror. A choice. She'd chosen this. All of it. The rage crystallized into something cold and purposeful again. She'd made her choice, and now I'd make mine. I'm filing for divorce, I said, watching her face crumple. I'll arrange for the kids to stay with Luna until we figure out custody. I've already started the paperwork. Ethan, please. But before I do that, I continued, voice dropping to something intimate and venomous, I'm going to make sure Julian Noir understands exactly what he took from me. I'm going to seduce someone he cares about, his woman, his confidant, whoever holds his leash, and I'm going to film every moment, every touch, every gasp, every surrender. And then I'm going to show it to him while he's lying in his own hospital bed, recovering from his ritual wounds. Elena stared at me in horror. You can't, that would make you just like him. Maybe I need to be like him, I said. Maybe I need to understand what it feels like to take something precious from someone else, to mark them with betrayal the way you've marked me. That's not you, she whispered. You're not capable of that kind of cruelty. I wasn't, I agreed. 24 hours ago, I was the perfect husband you were so bored with, but you changed that, Elena. You showed me what we really are beneath the masks, and now I'm going to show Julian. I stood, the chair scraping against linoleum. "The nurses say you can be discharged tomorrow. I'll arrange for a car to take you to your mother's. Don't come home. Not yet. Ethan." But I was already moving toward the door, already thinking about tomorrow night, about the woman who'd agreed to meet me, about the sweet revenge that would mirror Elena's betrayal, and maybe ease this sick ache in my chest. "Wait." Her voice stopped me at the threshold. "There's something else you should know. About Julian. About why he targets married women." I turned back, curious despite myself. "He films everything," she said. "Has cameras hidden in his ritual chambers. He collects the footage, uses it I don't know what for. But when I saw the lens, I realized this wasn't just about desire. It was about power, about having something to hold over us. A camera. Evidence of her betrayal, recorded and filed away for whatever sick purpose Julian served. The information should have disgusted me. Instead, it gave me ideas. "Good to know," I said, and left her there, small and wounded in that hospital bed, probably expecting me to come back, to change my mind, to be the man she'd married instead of the man she'd created. But I was done being that man. Tomorrow night, I'd become something else entirely. Chapter 3. Confrontation in the Cavern of Emotions. I made it as far as the parking lot before my phone buzzed. The hospital. Elena's condition had deteriorated, a panic attack triggering respiratory distress. They needed me back immediately. Part of me wanted to keep driving. Let her mother deal with it. Let Elena drown in the consequences of her choices the way I was drowning in mine. But the image of her small and wounded in that bed pulled me back like a fishhook buried deep in flesh. I found chaos when I returned to the third floor. Crimson emergency lights strobed the hallway, transforming the sterile hospital into something that recalled last night's festival, all red shadows and urgent movement. A crash cart stood outside 317, though the code team was already dispersing. "False alarm," I heard someone say. "Just severe anxiety." Just. As if anxiety could be measured on a scale where festival wounds registered as acceptable. Dr. Patel intercepted me at the door. "She's stable now, but barely. When she woke fully and realized what happened, the reality of her injuries, your conversation, she had a severe panic response. We've administered a mild sedative, but she keeps asking for you." "I'm not sure I should—" "Mr. Caldwell." Her voice dropped, professional mask slipping to reveal something more human underneath. "I don't know what happened between you two. Don't want to know. But that woman in there is fracturing. Whatever you need to say it now. Then either commit to helping her heal or walk away completely. This halfway cruelty is killing her." Halfway cruelty. The words stung because they were true. I'd promised revenge, but then left her suspended in not knowing. Had told her I'd destroy someone Julian cared about, but given no details. Had declared divorce, but not finalized it. I'd become a ghost haunting her hospital room, present enough to wound, but not enough to grant closure. 5 minutes, I said. Dr. Patel stepped aside, but I caught her expression as I passed something between pity and disgust. She'd seen me last night, probably read my face and body language, knew I was torn between protecting my wife and destroying her further, knew which way I was leaning. Elena had been repositioned in the bed, elevated more fully now. The emergency lights had been shut off, but the regular fluorescence seemed equally harsh, revealing every shadow beneath her eyes, every tremor in her hands as she clutched the sheets. The monitors beeped faster than they should, her heartbeat elevated even with the sedative. Her eyes found mine the moment I entered, and I watched hope flare and die in the space of a breath. "You came back," she whispered. "Hospital called. Said you were having a medical emergency." "Oh." The hope extinguished completely. "Not because you— No." I closed the door behind me, the click echoing with finality. "Not because I wanted to." She flinched, and I felt a dark satisfaction at the impact of my words. Good. Let her hurt the way I hurt. Let her understand what it feels like when the person you've built your life around becomes a stranger wielding blades. "The nurse said you're being discharged this afternoon," I continued, moving closer but not close enough to touch. "Your mother's driving up from Portland. She'll take you to her place until you're healed enough to figure out what comes next." What comes next? Elena's laugh held a manic edge. You mean the divorce, the custody battle, explaining to Zoe and Noah why Mommy and Daddy can't be in the same room anymore. You should have considered that before you let Julian Noir carve his name into your skin. He didn't. She stopped, closing her eyes. There's no name, just marks. Random marks that don't mean anything except that I was stupid and desperate and looking for something that doesn't exist. What were you looking for? I pulled the visitor's chair close enough that my knees almost touched the bed, close enough to see the individual tears clinging to her lashes. Tell me, Elena, what was worth destroying us for? I don't know. The words exploded from her, raw and ragged. I don't know what I was looking for. I just knew I was suffocating in our perfect life, in the routine we'd settled into, like it was a grave we were digging one day at a time. And when Julian looked at me, really looked at me, I felt, seen, I supplied, voice dripping venom. Desired? All the things I apparently stopped making you feel? No, yes, I don't. She pressed her palms against her eyes. You looked at me the same way you looked at the bills that needed paying, the groceries that needed buying. Like I was another item on your responsibility list. Check on wife, kiss wife, make love to wife. All without any actual passion? I leaned forward, finally touching her. My hand closed around her wrist, pulling it away from her face, my grip tight enough to hurt, to leave marks of my own. You think I didn't feel passion for you anymore? You think I didn't want you every goddamn day? You wanted the idea of me, she gasped, trying to pull free. My grip tightened. The wife, the mother, the woman who fit into the life we'd built. But you didn't want me the person underneath who was screaming for something more, something dangerous, something real? The word came out as a snarl. You think what happened with Julian was real? He manipulates women like you for sport, Elena, collects you like trophies, has it all on camera so he can relive his conquests whenever he wants. Her face went white. How do you? I've been doing research, talked to some people who know him. Turns out you're not special. You're number 81 in his collection of married women looking for excitement. I released her wrist, watched her cradle it against her chest. There are forums, Elena. Entire communities of men who share these videos, rate them. Discuss which wives broke the easiest. You're lying. But her voice shook with the knowledge that I wasn't. Camera in the ritual chamber, hidden behind what you probably thought was decorative metalwork. It caught everything: your face, your voice, your consent to let him mark you. And unless he's destroyed it since his attack, that footage exists. Forever. The monitors shrieked as her heart rate spiked. Elena's hand flew to her mouth, and for a moment I thought she might vomit. The sedative couldn't touch this kind of horror. Oh God, if anyone sees, if it gets out the kids, my work, your work. Too late to worry about that now. I leaned back, crossing my arms, enjoying her panic the way she'd probably enjoyed Julian's touches in the moment before the blades came out. But don't worry, I have a solution. She stared at me through tears, mascara from last night's festival makeup running in black rivers down her cheeks. What solution? I'm going to get that footage. I'm going to make sure every copy is destroyed. And I'm going to make Julian Noir understand what it feels like to have something precious taken from him. How? She whispered. This was it. The moment I'd been building toward. The moment when I'd unmask myself completely and show her what she'd created. I've arranged to meet someone tonight. A woman who means something to Julian. His partner, his lover, the details don't matter. What matters is that I'm going to seduce her the way he seduced you. I watched Elena's face crumple, watched understanding dawn with all its horrific implications. I'm going to take her somewhere private, touch her the way he touched you, make her gasp and moan and surrender to desires she probably didn't know she had, and I'm going to film every moment of it. Ethan, no. Then I'm going to show it to Julian while he's recovering from his own wounds. Let him watch someone take what's his. Let him feel the humiliation and betrayal and impotent rage that's been eating me alive since I watched you disappear with him into those fucking shadows. Elena's breath came in short, desperate gasps. That's not you. You're not capable of that kind of calculated cruelty. I wasn't. I stood, towering over her now, my shadow falling across her body like a shroud. But you changed me, Elena. You showed me that beneath all our masks, we're just animals pretending at civilization. Well, I'm done pretending. If you do this, her voice broke. If you become him, we'll never find our way back. Never. There is no way back. The words exploded from somewhere deep and wounded. You carved that away when you let him mark you, when you chose his blade over my love. When you texted me not to wait up while you were screaming his name in some ritual chamber. I never said his name. Does it matter? I was shaking now, the rage I'd been carefully containing erupting like a festival bonfire. Does any of it matter when the end result is the same? You betrayed me, you broke us, and now I'm going to break something of his, so at least we're all equally destroyed. Elena tried to sit up fully, wincing as the movement pulled at her wounds. Please, please, Ethan, if you ever loved me, if any part of you still loves me, don't do this. Don't let him turn you into something you'll hate. Don't let my mistake poison you into too late. I pulled something from my pocket, the silver serpent pendant I'd given her on our 10th anniversary. The one she'd been wearing last night when she left with Julian. The one that must have fallen off during their ritual. A nurse had found it, tried to return it to me. I'm keeping this, to remind myself what love looks like when it's been skinned and left to rot. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, the sound harsh and broken. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you chose excitement over fidelity? When you prioritized feeling alive over keeping your vows? When you risked our children's stability so you could play at being dangerous for one fucking night? I know, she screamed, the word tearing from her throat with enough force to trigger another monitor alarm. I know what I did! I know I destroyed everything. I know I'm going to have to live with these scars and this guilt for the rest of my life. But destroying someone else won't fix what I broke. Maybe not, I agreed, but it'll hurt less than sitting here drowning in your choices. I moved toward the door, then stopped. Turned back. Looked at her one last time, this woman I'd loved since we were barely more than children. This woman who'd borne my children and shared my bed and made me believe in forever. This woman who'd chosen a stranger's blade over my devotion. I'm taking off my ring, I said quietly, twisting the gold band from my finger. It caught for a moment. 14 years of wear had made a groove in my flesh, then slid free. I set it on the bedside table next to the serpent pendant. When your mother picks you up, have her collect these. I don't want them. Ethan. His name came out as a sob. Don't call me. Don't text. Don't try to explain or apologize or make this something it's not. We're done, Elena. The moment you disappeared with Julian, our marriage ended. This is just the paperwork. I pulled the door open, ready to leave, ready to walk away from 14 years and build something new from the wreckage. Build something that understood revenge better than redemption. But then Elena's voice stopped me, small and broken and terrible in its truth. I tried to stop him. When the first cut came and I realized this wasn't fantasy anymore, wasn't just playing at danger, I tried to say no, but he told me I'd already consented to the full ritual, that stopping wasn't part of the experience, that the marks would remind me not to play with fire unless I was ready to burn. I turned back slowly, seeing her face fully now, seeing past my rage to the terror beneath. He held me down, she continued, words tumbling out like confession. Used silk scarves disguised as part of the ritual. I couldn't move, couldn't do anything but feel every cut and know I'd brought this on myself. That my choice to go with him had led here and there was no one to blame but me. The rage crystallized into something colder. Are you saying he assaulted you? I'm saying the line between consent and assault got blurred somewhere between the first kiss and the final cut. I'm saying I walked in willingly but wanted to run out screaming. I'm saying... She pressed both hands against her face, shoulders shaking. I'm saying I don't know anymore. I don't know what I am or what happened or how to live with what I've become. The monitors wailed again. Elena's breathing had turned ragged, each inhale a desperate gasp. Her hands clawed at her throat like the air had turned solid. Nurse! I hit the call button, then again when no one came immediately. She can't breathe! The door burst open. Dr. Patel rushed in with 2 nurses, their movements efficient and practiced. One checked vitals while the other prepared an injection. Patel herself moved to Elena's side, voice calm and commanding. "Elena, look at me. Match my breathing. Match my... In through your nose, that's it, out through your mouth." But Elena's eyes had rolled back, her body seizing with the effort to draw air into lungs that had forgotten how to function. "Panic attack?" one nurse asked. "Severe dissociative episode," Patel corrected, her voice sharp with authority. "Push .5 of Ativan, and get him out of here." The nurse Young, barely out of training, grabbed my arm. "Sir, you need to leave now." "I'm her husband. You're the one causing this," Patel snapped, not looking up from Elena. "Whatever you said, whatever you did, it broke something. Get out before you kill her with your cruelty." The words struck like physical blows. I stumbled backward, watching as they worked to bring Elena back from wherever her mind had fled to escape this moment. Watched as the injection took hold, and her breathing slowly, painfully regulated. Watched as her eyes found mine one last time before the sedative pulled her under. And in that look, God, in that look I saw everything we'd been and everything we'd never be again. The nurses escorted me out despite my protests. The door closed with mechanical finality, leaving me in the hallway with its crimson lights now dimmed back to ordinary fluorescence. With my rage that felt suddenly hollow, with my revenge plan that tasted like ash in my mouth. "Your cruelty," Patel had said. But Elena was the one who'd betrayed me. Elena was the one who'd broken our vows. Elena was the one who'd carved the first wound. Wasn't she? I looked down at my bare ring finger, at the groove that marked where gold had rested for 14 years, at the pale band of skin that would fade with time, erasing all evidence I'd ever been claimed. My phone buzzed. A text from the woman I was supposed to meet tonight. Julian's woman. My ticket to the revenge that would balance the scales. Looking forward to tonight. Should I wear something special? I stared at the words, thumb hovering over the keyboard. All I had to do was respond. Confirm the meeting. Follow through on the plan I'd crafted in rage and pain and betrayal. All I had to do was become the man Elena's choices had created. But standing in that hospital hallway, listening to the muffled sounds of Elena being sedated into oblivion, I couldn't remember why revenge had seemed like the answer. Couldn't remember what it would prove beyond that I could hurt her the way she'd hurt me. Couldn't remember who I'd been before Halloween masks had shown us both our worst selves. A nurse emerged from 317, the same one who'd escorted me out. Her name tag read Sarah. She looked at me with something between pity and contempt. "Dr. Patel wanted me to give you this." She held out a small plastic bag containing the pendant and ring I'd left behind. "She said your wife deserves better than symbols of love weaponized as punishment." I took the bag, its weight insignificant but its meaning crushing. Will she be okay? Physically? She'll heal. "The wounds aren't deep," Sarah's expression hardened. "But you've done damage that goes deeper than any ritual blade. I hope your revenge was worth it." She walked away, leaving me alone with my choices and the text message still waiting for a response. I looked at it again, at the promise of vindication through matching betrayal, at the easy path that would let me hurt someone else and pretend it healed my wounds. Then I deleted the message, blocked the number, sat down on the hard plastic chair outside Elena's room and buried my face in my hands. Because Sarah was right. Patel was right. I'd become exactly what I'd accused Julian of being, someone who weaponized desire to inflict pain. And I didn't know how to come back from that. Didn't know if Elena and I could ever find our way back to each other through the minefield we'd created. But I knew that revenge wouldn't show us the path, would only bury us deeper in the darkness we'd already descended into. Behind Elena's door, the monitors beeped steadily now, sedated but stable, wounded but breathing. Like our marriage, if it could even be called that anymore. I sat in that hallway as dawn broke outside the hospital windows, turning the glass walls from black to gold. Sat with the pendant and ring heavy in my pocket. Sat with the weight of what we'd both become beneath our Halloween masks. And wondered if morning light could ever reach deep enough to illuminate the path out of this darkness. Or if some caverns were meant to stay forever shrouded in shadow. Chapter 4. Secrets in the Dark Right. Detective Cassandra Vale had seen worse crime scenes. 20 years on the force meant she'd walked through enough blood-soaked apartments and ritual murders to populate nightmares for several lifetimes. But there was something about the Nightshade Festival's private chambers that made her skin crawl in ways the obvious horrors never had. Maybe it was the incense still clinging to the air sandalwood and something darker, more organic, or the way the torchlight from the few remaining flames cast shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. Or maybe it was just the knowledge that whatever had happened here, the participants had chosen it, had walked in willingly, masks on, inhibitions off, ready to transform Halloween's promise of anonymity into something far more dangerous. "Detective?" Officer Kai Chen's voice echoed from deeper in the cavern. "You need to see this." Cass ducked under the crime scene tape, her boots crunching on what looked like rose petals but felt like broken glass. The main chamber opened into several smaller alcoves, each decorated according to different themes, some Victorian, some medieval, some that defied any historical categorization and existed purely in the realm of dark fantasy. Julian Noir's chosen space sat at the cavern's heart. Fitting, Cass thought grimly, for a man who seemed to position himself as the architect of other people's downfall. Kai stood beside a demonic effigy that might have been impressive if it weren't so obviously theatrical, all papier-mâché and dollar store horns painted to look ancient. But what he held in his gloved hands wasn't theatrical at all. A camera, small, high-end, the kind that cost more than Cass's monthly salary, and it was covered in blood that had dried to a rust-brown crust. "Found it wedged behind the effigy's base," Kai said, rotating it carefully. "Looks like it was hidden deliberately. Part of the decor but positioned to capture—" He gestured to the raised platform in the center of the chamber, to the silk scarves still tied to its corners, to the dark stains that the festival's cleanup crew would scrub away once the investigation concluded. "Everything," Cass finished. "Positioned to capture everything." She pulled on her own gloves, taking the camera and examining its housing. Blood had seeped into the seams, but the lens itself was clean, protected, almost like someone had cleaned it deliberately even while leaving the rest as evidence. "Is it Julian Noir's blood?" she asked. "Won't know until we run it, but given where he was attacked in his car, not here, probably not." Kai pulled out an evidence bag. "My guess? This is from Elena Caldwell, or one of the other women who bled in this chamber. Other women." The phrase hung in the air like the incense, heavy with implication. Cass had read the initial reports. Elena Caldwell, married 14 years, 2 children, no history of violence or risk-taking behavior. A woman who'd attended a Halloween festival and ended up ritually marked by a man she'd just met. The story should have been simple, a case of consent gone wrong, of festival intoxication leading to poor choices, but nothing about this felt simple. "Bag it," she said, "and get forensics to pull any footage off the internal storage. I want to know exactly what Julian Noir was recording." "You think he's been doing this to more than just Caldwell?" Cass looked around the chamber at the well-worn silk restraints, at the variety of implements arranged on a nearby table with the precision of surgical tools, at the way everything was positioned for optimal camera angles. "I think Julian Noir's been doing this for a very long time," she said, "and I think Elena Caldwell was just the latest in a long line of women who thought they were playing at danger but were actually starring in someone else's production." Back at the precinct, the tech lab hummed with the white noise of computers processing data faster than human minds could comprehend. Cass stood behind Kai as he worked, the camera connected to his terminal via a web of cables that looked more like life support than data transfer. "How long?" she asked. "For the full recovery. Could be hours. But I can start playing files as they come through." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Looks like there's—" "Jesus, Cass, there's over 80 files here." 80. The number hit like a gut punch. "Start with the most recent," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Professional detachment, that's what got you through cases like this. The moment you let the horror touch you was the moment you became useless to the victims." The screen flickered, then image resolved into clarity that made Cass wish for the mercy of poor resolution. Elena Caldwell. There was no mistaking her, even in the festival mask and low light. The time stamp in the corner read 1:47 a.m., less than 30 minutes before patrol had found her bleeding and incoherent. Cass watched as Julian entered the frame, watched as he moved with the practiced grace of someone who'd choreographed this scene dozens of times before, watched as he touched Elena light caresses that looked consensual, that probably felt consensual in the moment, but carried an undercurrent of calculated manipulation. "He's good," Kai muttered, disgust clear in his voice. The way he's positioning her, the things he's whispering, you can see her resistance fading in real time. "Can we get audio?" "Working on it." The footage continued. Julian producing silk scarves with a flourish that made them seem playful rather than restraints. Elena's momentary hesitation, his reassurance, you could see his lips moving, see her tension easing, see the moment she made the choice that would scar her in ways deeper than the ritual blades. Then the scarves tightened, and Elena's body language changed from willing participant to something else. Something that made Cass's professional detachment crack just slightly. "There." She pointed at the screen. "Do you see how she's pulling against the restraints now? How her head is shaking?" Kai nodded, his jaw tight. "That's not consent anymore. That's stop the tape." Cass couldn't watch the blade's first appearance, couldn't watch whatever happened next while maintaining the distance she needed to do this job right. "Go back. I want to see the moment she arrives, the initial interaction." Kai rewound. The footage jumped, showing Elena entering the chamber alone, looking around, touching the silk scarves with curiosity rather than fear. Then Julian's entrance perfectly timed, Cass noted. He'd been watching, waiting for her to be alone, surrounded by his carefully constructed set, a predator stalking prey that thought it was playing hunter. "Audio's coming through," Kai said. Julian's voice filled the lab, smooth, cultured, hypnotic. "Welcome to the unveiling. Here, we shed more than masks. We shed the lies we tell ourselves about who we are and what we want." Elena's response, breathless. "I've never done anything like this before." "That's why you're here, to experience something beyond the routine, beyond the safe boundaries of your everyday life." A pause. "Your husband, does he know what you need? What you crave in the darkness?" "He knows me better than anyone." "Does he?" Julian moved closer, his hands visible now on Elena's waist. "Or does he know the version of you that fits his expectations? The wife, the mother, the woman who's learned to silence her true desires?" Cass felt her stomach turn. This was seduction as psychological warfare, finding the weakness and exploiting it with surgical precision. "I shouldn't be here," Elena whispered on the tape. "And yet you are. Because some part of you knows that shouldn't is just another cage you've been living in." The footage continued. Cass forced herself to watch as Julian systematically dismantled Elena's resistance, as he transformed curiosity into desire, into surrender, as he positioned her exactly where he wanted her physically and psychologically before introducing the blades. "Stop." Cass turned away from the screen. "I've seen enough. Pull the metadata. I want to know when this camera was placed, how long it's been recording, and whether there's any remote access." "You think someone else has access to these files?" "I think Julian Noir is too smart to keep his only copies in a camera that could be discovered. There's a backup somewhere, a collection." She grabbed her phone. "And I think we need to search his residence. Now." Kai was already typing. "I'll start the warrant paperwork. What grounds?" "Evidence of ongoing criminal enterprise, pattern of predatory behavior, probable cause to believe additional victims and footage exist." Cass pulled up her contacts, finding Judge Morrison's direct line. He recorded Elena Caldwell without her consent in what may constitute sexual assault. That's enough for a search warrant, especially given his current hospitalized state means evidence could be destroyed by accomplices. The warrant took 3 hours. 3 hours Cass spent reviewing more files, each one featuring a different woman, a different mask, a different variation on the same predatory ritual. Some women seemed fully willing throughout. Others showed the same shifting body language as Elena consent that became coercion so gradually the line blurred beyond recognition. File 52 made Cass stop cold. The woman wore a cat mask, but her build and movement were distinctive. And when Julian removed the mask during the ritual, always removed it, Cass was learning to capture faces for his collection recognition hit like a sledgehammer. "Kai, Run this through facial recognition, now. 5 minutes later, the result came back. Nadia Voss, reported missing briefly 2 years ago. Marriage dissolved 6 months later. Husband Marcus Voss had filed for divorce citing infidelity. Pull her file, Cass said. Everything. Divorce records, police reports, anything that mentions her name. While Kai worked, Cass fast-forwarded through Nadia's footage, watched the same calculated seduction, watched the restraints, watched the blades. But this footage had a coda the others didn't, a date stamp from 4 days ago. And the footage showed Nadia returning to the chamber, showed her waiting in darkness, showed Julian entering alone, unmasked, unprepared, showed Nadia stepping from shadow with a blade of her own. Holy shit, Kai breathed, watching over her shoulder. She's the one who attacked him. Cass watched as Nadia moved with purpose, without hesitation. Watched her flip the script, making Julian the one bound, the one bleeding, the one begging for mercy he'd never granted his victims. She found out, Cass said softly. Found out about the cameras, about being recorded, about being part of his collection. And she came back for revenge. Should we send units to pick her up, but carefully? She's a victim turning into something else. I want her brought in for questioning, not treated like a monster. Cass ejected the drive, holding the small device that contained so much pain and betrayal. And get me everything we have on Julian Noir's properties, galleries, residences, storage units, anywhere he might keep the master collection. You think there's more than what's on this camera? I think we've found the tip of something much darker. Cass grabbed her coat. And I think Ethan Caldwell isn't the only person who's wanted revenge on Julian Noir. The Crimson Gallery sat in the city's arts district, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows that would showcase whatever exhibitions Julian curated when he wasn't orchestrating ritual assaults. The warrant gave them access to both the gallery and the apartment above it, Julian's private residence, according to property records. Cass had brought a full forensic team. Something about this place made her skin crawl before they'd even entered. Made her certain they'd find horrors beyond what the camera had captured. The gallery itself was clean, almost sterile. Rotating exhibitions of provocative art nudity, violence, eroticism rendered in oil and bronze and digital media. The kind of work that pushed boundaries while remaining just legal enough for public display. Upstairs, she told her team. Focus on private spaces. Anywhere he might store files, equipment, anything related to the festival recordings. The apartment above proved as carefully curated as the gallery below. Minimalist furniture in blacks and grays, abstract art on exposed brick. Windows overlooking the city lights like Julian had positioned himself above it all, watching from on high. But behind the bedroom closet, hidden behind a false wall that took them 40 minutes to find, they discovered his true gallery, a room roughly 10 feet square, every wall lined with hard drives, meticulously labeled by date and file number. In the center, a desk with 3 monitors and enough processing power to run a small production studio. Jesus Christ, one of the techs whispered. Cass pulled on gloves, approaching the setup with the reverence reserved for the most damning evidence. The monitors were dark, but when she pressed the power button on the central tower, they blazed to life with a logo she recognized from high-end video editing software. The main screen showed a directory. Hundreds of folders, each labeled with a number and a name. 52. Nadia Voss, 67. Charlotte Kim, 73. Diana Morrison, 81. Elena Caldwell. 81 women. 81 festivals across how many years? Cass did quick math if Julian had started this 5 years ago and hit multiple festivals per year. Detective! Another tech had found something, a filing cabinet tucked in the corner. You need to see this. Inside, printed photographs. Not stills from the videos, but candid shots taken before the festivals. Women with their husbands, with their children, at parks, at restaurants, going about their daily lives. Julian had been stalking them, selecting them, learning their routines, their vulnerabilities, the exact psychological weaknesses he'd exploit during the festivals. This isn't opportunistic, Cass said, her voice tight with controlled rage. This is premeditated. He's been running a long-term operation using festivals as cover. Do we have enough for additional charges? We have enough to bury him. Cass pulled out her phone, photographing the evidence before the techs could bag it. But first I want to understand the full scope. Who else knew about this? Who helped him? These festivals don't run themselves. There's infrastructure, there are organizers, her phone rang, the precinct. Vale. Detective, we've got Nadia Voss in custody. She came willingly, but she's asking for a lawyer and won't say anything until she has representation. Good. Keep her comfortable. I'll be there in 30 minutes to conduct the interview myself. Cass gestured to her team. Document everything. Every hard drive, every photograph, every piece of evidence that shows pattern and premeditation. I want this airtight. Because Nadia Voss had attacked Julien Noir, had maybe tried to kill him, and under normal circumstances that would make her the criminal. But these weren't normal circumstances. And Cass was beginning to understand that the line between victim and avenger wasn't as clear as her badge suggested it should be. Driving back to the precinct, Cass thought about Ethan Caldwell, about the pain she'd seen in his eyes when he identified his wife's injuries, about the rage she'd sensed simmering beneath his carefully controlled exterior, about the fact that if Elena Caldwell's footage got leaked, it would destroy more than just her reputation. It would shatter a family, would haunt their children for years, would reduce 14 years of marriage to a single night's recorded betrayal. And Ethan knew about the cameras now. Elena must have told him, which meant Ethan Caldwell had every reason to want Julien Noir dead, had every reason to seek the kind of revenge Nadia Voss had already taken. Kai, she said into her phone's Bluetooth, I need surveillance on Ethan Caldwell. Not obvious, just monitoring. I want to know if he makes any moves toward Julien Noir's hospital room or known associates. You think he's a flight risk? I think he's a man at the edge of his control. And I think Julien Noir pushes people past edges for sport. She thought about the footage she'd watched, about how many marriages Julien had systematically destroyed, about how many men like Ethan were out there, nursing rage and humiliation while the legal system moved at its glacial pace, about whether justice through official channels would ever feel sufficient to people whose lives had been recorded, cataloged, and collected like trophies. Her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital. Julien Noir had regained consciousness, was stable enough for questioning if she wanted to interview him. Oh, she wanted to interview him, wanted to see his face when she told him they'd found everything, wanted to watch his carefully constructed persona crack when he realized his collection had become evidence of his own predation. But first, Nadia Voss. First, understanding how a victim became an avenger. First, learning whether the darkness Julien spread could ever be contained, or if it would keep rippling outward, transforming everyone it touched into something they'd never meant to become. The precinct appeared ahead, its windows glowing in the pre-dawn darkness. Soon the day shift would arrive, and this case would explode across the department, across the city, across the lives of 81 women and their families. Cass parked in her usual spot, grabbed the drive containing Elena's footage, and headed inside. Behind her, the city lights flickered like festival candles, and somewhere in the darkness, other victims were waking to the knowledge that their worst moments had been cataloged and stored, waking to rage and shame, and the question that haunted all of Julien Noir's collection: what do you become when someone steals your choice and calls it art? Chapter 5. Nadia's Vengeful Lust. The interrogation room smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee scents designed to strip away comfort and leave only stark truth. Detective Cass Vale studied the woman across the metal table, noting how Nadia Voss had positioned herself in the chair, spine straight, hands folded, eyes fixed on a point just past Cass's left shoulder. Prison posture, learned in the 12 hours since her arrest. But beneath the control, Cass saw fractures. The way Nadia's fingers trembled slightly before she locked them together. The pulse visible in her throat, too rapid for genuine calm. The darkness beneath her eyes that spoke of nights haunted by more than guilt. Coffee? Cass offered, sliding a styrofoam cup across the table. It's terrible, but it's hot. Nadia's gaze finally focused, meeting Cass's directly. Where's my lawyer? On his way. Traffic from downtown. Cass settled into her chair, deliberately casual. But we don't have to wait. I'm not here to interrogate you, Ms. Voss. I'm here to understand. Understand what? That I stabbed a man? Nadia's laugh held a brittle edge. Pretty straightforward, Detective. I walked into his hospital room with a knife and You attacked him in his ritual chamber 4 days ago. We have footage. The words landed like a slap. Nadia's composure shattered, her hands flying to her mouth as if she could physically hold back the sob building in her chest. You found the cameras, she whispered. All of them. The one in the nightshade chamber. The collection in his apartment. 81 files, Ms. Voss. 81 women he recorded without consent during festival rituals. 81. Nadia closed her eyes. I hoped I was the only one, that what happened to me was personal, specific. But he's been doing this for years, hunting at festivals, targeting married women, recording their falls. Cass leaned forward, her voice softening with the empathy that came from too many years seeing victims transform into something society couldn't categorize neatly. Talk to me, Nadia. Help me understand how you got from being his victim to his avenger? The word tasted sharp on Nadia's tongue. Is that what I am now? Or am I just another monster in this story? I think you're someone who has pushed past breaking and pushed back. Nadia stared at the coffee cup, steam rising in lazy spirals between them. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of confession and defiance braided together. 2 years ago, my marriage was dying. Not dramatically, no fights, no betrayals, just this slow suffocation under the weight of routine. Marcus worked 70-hour weeks at the firm. I taught high school English and came home to an empty house more nights than not. We'd stop seeing each other, stop talking about anything deeper than groceries and bills, and whether the furnace needed servicing. Cass nodded, recognizing the pattern from Elena Caldwell's story. Julian Noir's hunting ground wasn't random. It was the space between comfort and passion, where marriages went to quietly drown. So when my sister invited me to the Moonlight Festival, said I needed a night to remember who I was before marriage made me invisible, I went. Nadia's hands unclenched, reaching for the coffee despite her earlier refusal. Wore a mask, dressed in clothes I'd packed away years ago. Told myself it was just one night of fantasy. And Julian found you. Or I found him. Does it matter? Bitterness crept into her voice. He was everything Marcus wasn't present, attentive, looking at me like I was the only woman in the room despite the crowd. Like I mattered beyond my function as wife or teacher or daughter. Cass pulled out a notepad, not for the official record that was recording anyway, but because sometimes writing helped victims shape their stories. Tell me about the ritual. Nadia's eyes went distant, seeing past the interrogation room's walls to a night 2 years buried but never forgotten. The festival hall pulsed with drums and bodies, heat rising from the crowd like steam from summer pavement. Nadia's cat mask felt simultaneously like armor and disguise hiding her from judgment while letting her inhabit someone braver than the woman who graded essays and microwave dinners alone. You're new to this. The voice came from behind, smooth as aged whiskey. When she turned, the man wore horns, demonic and elegant, transforming him into something mythological. How can you tell? The way you're watching everyone else, trying to understand the rules before you play. He extended a hand. But there are no rules at festivals, only desires we pretend not to have in daylight. His hand felt warm, almost feverish against her palm. I'm married. So are most of the women I dance with. Marriage doesn't erase desire, just teaches us to bury it. He pulled her onto the floor, movements fluid enough to suggest either professional training or natural grace. I'm Julian. Nadia. Beautiful name. Russian? Ukrainian grandmother. Why was she telling him this? Why did his attention feel like sunlight after years in shadow? They danced through 3 songs, bodies finding synchronization that felt both practiced and discovered. His hands on her waist burned through the thin fabric of her dress. His breath against her ear as he leaned close to be heard over the music sent electricity down her spine. There's more to the festival than this public performance, he murmured during a slower song, their bodies pressed close enough that she felt his heartbeat, or maybe her own. Private rituals for those willing to shed more than masks. I shouldn't, is the cage we lock ourselves in. Tonight is about breaking free. His hand traced her spine, each vertebra a point of decision. I have a chamber reserved, silks and candlelight and the kind of privacy where you can discover who you are beneath all the roles you perform. Part of her screamed to run. To remember Marcus, their vows, the life they'd built even if it felt more like a prison than a home. But a louder part, the part that had been dying slowly for years, whispered that maybe one night of remembering she was alive wouldn't destroy everything. Just talking, she heard herself say. Just seeing what a private ritual looks like. Julian's smile suggested he'd heard that before. Of course, just talking. The chamber sat deep in the festival complex, accessible through corridors that grew darker and more intimate with each turn. Inside, exactly as promised. Silk drapes in deep crimson, candles casting shadows that danced like living things, and a raised platform in the center draped with more silk. It's beautiful, Nadia breathed. A stage for transformation, for becoming who you are beneath who you've been told to be. Julian poured wine from a bottle that looked expensive even in candlelight. To breaking free. The wine tasted of cherries and something darker. What exactly happens in these private rituals? Whatever the participants desire. Some come just to talk, to confess desires they've never voiced. Others. He moved closer, his hand finding her cheek, thumb tracing her lower lip. Others want to experience touch as worship, as art, as the sacred act it was before religion taught us shame. I've never been worshipped. The words slipped out before shame could catch them. Your husband is a fool. My husband is busy building a career. And forgetting he has a wife. Julian's other hand found her waist, pulling her against him with enough force to steal her breath. Let me show you what it feels like to be seen, truly seen. The kiss came next, inevitable as gravity, drowning as floodwater. His mouth moved over hers with practiced precision, finding every sensitive spot, coaxing responses she'd forgotten she could give. Her hands fisted in his shirt, caught between pulling him closer and pushing away. Trust me, he whispered against her lips. I promise you'll feel alive again. More wine. More kisses that traveled from her mouth to her throat to her collarbone. His hands skillful enough to make her dress feel like a burden rather than protection. And when he produced the silk scarves soft as sin, red as blood, she let him tie her wrists to the platform because some part of her wanted to surrender control. Wanted to be helpless so she couldn't be blamed for whatever came next. Beautiful, he murmured, arranging her like a painting. You were made for this, for being admired and desired and marked as precious. The first blade appeared like magic, small, ornamental, the kind used in theatrical performances. A ritual marking, Julian explained, his voice hypnotic. A temporary symbol of this transformation. Beauty in pain, pleasure in surrender. I don't wait. But the blade was already moving, tracing her inner thigh with pressure that started as caress and became something sharper. The pain bloomed hot and immediate, shocking her out of the wine and desire haze. Stop. The word came out weak, uncertain. Shh. This is part of the ritual, the marking that proves you were brave enough to break free. Another cut, this one across her lower abdomen. Pain and pleasure are twins, Nadia. You'll understand once the endorphins hit. Please, I changed my mind. You consented to the full ritual. Stopping now would be like walking out of a surgery halfway through. His voice remained gentle even as the blade continued its work. Trust the process. Trust me. She tried to pull against the scarves, but they held firm. Tried to scream, but his hand covered her mouth, muffling the sound into something that could be mistaken for passion by anyone passing outside. There we go. Almost finished. You're doing so well. Tears tracked down her temples, mixing with sweat and the realization that she'd walked into this willingly, had chosen the cage even while thinking she was breaking free. When Julian finally released her, the marks burning like brands across her skin, he kissed her forehead with tenderness that felt more violation than the blade. You're transformed now, marked as someone brave enough to reach for desire even when it cuts. Nadia barely remembered dressing, fleeing the chamber, stumbling through festival crowds that seemed grotesque now, rather than liberating. Barely remembered the cab ride home or washing blood from her thighs in her own bathroom while Marcus slept, oblivious, in their bed. What she remembered was the shame, the weight of choice that felt like something stolen, the way she'd invited him in and he'd taken everything, leaving her marked and ruined and somehow complicit in her own destruction. He filmed all of it. Nadia's voice pulled Cass back to the interrogation room, to the present where the past's wounds still bled. I didn't know until 6 months ago when I saw the camera during a news report about festival safety violations, recognized the chamber, the setup, realized my worst moment had been recorded and stored like a trophy. That's when you started planning revenge. That's when I started drowning. Nadia's hands shook so badly she had to set down the coffee cup. My marriage ended when Marcus found the footage someone sent it to him anonymously, probably Julian tying up loose ends. Marcus didn't ask questions, didn't want to hear about consent or manipulation or how I'd been targeted. He just saw his wife with another man and filed for divorce. I'm sorry. Don't be. He was right to leave. I made the choice to go with Julian. I let him tie me down. Everything that came after that's on me. Her voice hardened. But the cameras? The collection? The way he hunted married women and recorded their falls? That's on him. Cass leaned back, studying Nadia with new understanding. So you went back, 4 days ago, entered his chamber while he was there alone, and I made him feel what I felt. Nadia met her gaze without flinching. I tied him down with his own silk scarves, used his own ritual blade, made him understand what it's like to consent to one thing and receive another, to realize too late that you're not safe, not in control, not going to escape without scars. You tried to kill him. No. The word came out sharp. I tried to mark him the way he marked me, to give him scars he'd carry forever so every time he looked in the mirror, he'd remember. I could have killed him, the blade was sharp enough and he was helpless enough. But death would have been too easy, too clean. So you left him bleeding and fled. I left him transformed, Nadia corrected. Marked as someone who learned what it feels like to be prey. Cass made notes, her mind working through the legal implications. Self-defense wouldn't fly. The attack had been premeditated, revenge-driven. But there were mitigating factors. The footage, Julian's pattern of predation, the psychological damage of being recorded and catalogued. Ms. Voss, I need to ask, did you attempt to reach Julian at the hospital after his initial attack? Nadia blinked, confused. What? No. I turned myself in 3 days ago when I heard about his car accident, or what I thought was an accident. Why? Someone else attacked him, in his hospital room 2 days ago. Stabbed him again while he was recovering. The color drained from Nadia's face. I've been in custody. I know. You have an alibi. Cass leaned forward. But someone else wanted him dead. Someone else in his collection, maybe. Or a husband who found out what Julian did. Ethan Caldwell. The name emerged as barely a whisper. Elena's husband. I saw the news she's file number 81. If he found out about the cameras, we're monitoring him. But there could be others. 81 women means potentially 81 families with motivation. Cass closed her notebook. I need you to tell me everything you know about Julian's operation. Any accomplices, any other victims you've had contact with, anything that might help us understand the full scope. There was a woman, Fiona something. She worked the festivals, helped select targets, pointed out which wives seemed unhappy, which ones might be vulnerable to Julian's attention. Nadia's jaw clenched. She's how he found me. I'd mentioned to her during a break that my marriage felt dead, and within an hour, Julian was there. Fiona. Cass made a note to pull festival staff records. Anyone else? The festival organizers had to know something was wrong. The private chambers, the cameras, the pattern of married women leaving marked someone had to notice, had to choose to look away. Complicity through silence. Cass had seen it before in institutions that valued reputation over safety. We'll investigate everyone connected to the festivals. But Nadia, I need you to understand something. What you did to Julian, while understandable, is still assault. You're going to face charges. I know. But, Cass held up a hand. I'm going to advocate for leniency. Push for community service and counseling rather than prison time. You were victimized first. and your response, while illegal, came from a place of trauma seeking justice that the system had failed to provide. Tears finally broke through Nadia's control, tracking silently down her cheeks. Why? Why help me when I did something so? Because Julian Noir turned you into something you never would have become on your own. And because if we don't break this cycle victim to avenger to criminal, it'll just keep spreading. Cass stood, gathering her files. Your lawyer should be here soon. Cooperate fully. Tell them everything you told me, and we'll work on getting you out of this with your life intact. What about Julian? What happens to him? He's facing charges for assault, recording without consent, stalking, operating a criminal enterprise. We have enough evidence to put him away for a very long time. Cass paused at the door. He won't hurt anyone else, Nadia. That part of your story ends here. But even as she said it, Cass wondered if that was true. Because Julian's legacy lived on in the footage, in the 81 women marked physically and psychologically, in the families destroyed by his festivals of desire, in people like Ethan Caldwell, balanced on the edge of becoming what they hated most, and in herself, a detective wondering whether justice through official channels would ever feel sufficient to victims whose wounds ran deeper than the law could reach. Chapter 6. Storm of Lustful Rage. 3 days after leaving Elena sedated in that hospital bed, I found myself at the Twilight Rite, a smaller festival on the city's south side, where Halloween's lingering energy drew people still hungry for anonymity's permission. The place throbbed with drums that felt like heartbeats torn from chests, with bodies moving in shadows, with the promise that masks could transform anyone into anything. I wore a different mask this time, simpler. A black half-face that made me look like every other man seeking something in darkness. And I was seeking, not pleasure-revenge disguised as seduction. Fiona Chen sat at the bar, her feline mask from the Nightshade Festival replaced by something more delicate, a butterfly crafted from peacock feathers and silver wire. She'd accepted my invitation to meet, thinking I wanted to discuss her role in Julian's artistic collective, thinking I was another patron of the festival scene, drawn to its transgressive allure. She had no idea I was Ethan Caldwell, Elena's husband, hunting for the woman who'd helped deliver my wife to a predator. You came. Her smile carried relief mixed with something darker anticipation of what might unfold. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. Truth, actually. Part of me wanted to drive past this place, go home to my kids, pretend I was still the man who believed in doing right. But curiosity won. It usually does at these festivals. She gestured to the bartender, ordering something amber and expensive-looking. Julian always said curiosity is desire wearing a disguise. We tell ourselves we're just exploring, just seeing, but really we're reaching for something we've wanted all along. Julian. The name landed like a blade between my ribs. You knew him well? I asked, keeping my voice casual. No. Present tense. He's recovering. Her expression clouded. What happened to him, what that woman did, it's unforgivable. He gave her exactly what she asked for, and she turned it into something violent. My hands clenched around my drink. Maybe she asked him to stop. Rituals don't stop midway. That's the point, committing fully to the experience, to transformation through intensity. Fiona's eyes found mine through her mask. Have you ever been marked? Physically claimed by an experience? My wife was. The words slipped out before I could catch them. Recently. By someone who didn't stop when she asked. Fiona's expression shifted, calculation replacing casual interest. Elena Caldwell, you're her husband. No point denying it now. Ethan. I should leave. But she didn't move. Her curiosity, or was it guilt, keeping her planted on that bar stool? You shouldn't have lied about who you are. And you shouldn't have pointed my wife out to a predator. My voice stayed low, controlled despite the rage simmering beneath. That's what you did, isn't it? You helped Julian select targets, identified which wives were vulnerable, which ones he could manipulate. I helped people find experiences that awakened them. But the defensiveness in her tone betrayed her. Julian offered liberation from routine, from dead marriages, from lives that had become cages. He offered violence disguised as enlightenment, and you were his recruiter. Fiona drained half her drink in one swallow. What do you want, Ethan? Revenge? To hurt me the way Julian hurt Elena? Because if that's your plan, you should know I'm not afraid of pain. I don't want to hurt you. Lie. I wanted to hurt everyone connected to what happened, wanted them to feel a fraction of the betrayal and rage that had consumed me since Halloween. I want to understand how someone helps destroy marriages and calls it art. Is that really why you asked me here? She leaned closer, her perfume jasmine and something spicier invading my space. Or did you want to prove you could seduce Julian's associate the way he seduced your wife? Even the score? Smart woman. Dangerous woman. Maybe both, I admitted. Honest, I appreciate that. Her hand found my thigh, touch light but deliberate. So let's be honest with each other. You want revenge disguised as seduction. I want... She paused, vulnerability cracking through her confident facade. I want to feel something other than complicit, other than guilty, other than like I helped create monsters. You did help create monsters. I know. Her hand tightened. I watched Julian work for 2 years, telling myself it was all consensual, all part of festival culture. But after what happened to him after seeing Nadia's face on the news and realizing she was one of his early marks, I can't keep lying to myself. This wasn't the conversation I'd planned. Wasn't the cold seduction where I'd extract information and inflict psychological damage. This was real, messy, human. Tell me about Julian's operation, I said, shifting away from her touch before it complicated things further. How many women? How many accomplices? Why? What will you do with that information? Probably something stupid. Probably something that makes me as bad as him. I met her eyes, but I need to know the scope of what he did. Need to understand if Elena was just collateral damage, or if she was specifically targeted. She was. Fiona pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages with trembling fingers. Julian had a type. Married women between 30 and 45, professional careers, signs of marital strain visible in their social media. He'd have me friend them months before festivals, build rapport, learn their vulnerabilities. And Elena? I met her at a work conference 6 months ago. She mentioned feeling invisible in her marriage, like she'd become a function rather than a person. That was exactly what Julian looked for the wound he could exploit. 6 months. This hadn't been impulse or bad luck. It had been a calculated hunt with my wife as the prey. How many others? Active targets? Probably 15 to 20 at any given time? Total over the years? She closed her eyes. I don't know. Nadia was file 52. Elena was 81. You do the math. 81 women. 81 marriages destroyed or damaged. 81 families carrying scars from Julian's festivals of desire. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you asked. Because I'm tired of protecting him. Because her voice broke. Because I was file number 7 4 years ago. Before I became his recruiter, I was his victim. And I've spent every day since trying to convince myself that I chose it, that I wanted it, that the marks were proof of my courage rather than my stupidity. The revelation hit like cold water, hit like cold. Fiona wasn't just Julian's accomplice. She was another casualty who'd been transformed into a weapon against others. He marked you too. Inner thighs, lower back, places my husband would see and question. Her hand moved unconsciously to her side. When I couldn't explain them, when the festival footage somehow ended up in his email, he filed for divorce. I lost everything: my marriage, my kids' trust, my sense of self. And Julian was there, offering me purpose, help him give others the experience I'd had, make them understand that transformation requires sacrifice. That's not transformation. That's trauma recruitment. I know that now. Tears tracked down her cheeks, smearing the careful makeup. But by the time I realized what we were doing, I was already complicit in dozens of falls, already responsible for marriages ending, for women being marked and recorded and cataloged. Already, she broke, the confident facade shattering completely. Her sobs came harsh and broken, years of suppressed guilt erupting in that club while drums pounded and bodies pressed close around us. I should have felt vindicated, should have enjoyed watching her suffer, should have seen this as justice for Elena, for all the women she'd helped Julian destroy. Instead, I just felt tired, tired of rage, of planning revenge, of becoming something dark in pursuit of balance. Come on! I stood, offering my hand, offering. Let's get you somewhere quieter." She looked up at me with confusion and something like hope. "Why? I helped destroy your marriage. You should hate me." "I do hate you, but I also understand you." I pulled her up gently. "And I'm learning that revenge doesn't fix anything. It just creates more people who need fixing." We ended up in my car, parked in the festival lot with mist pressing against the windows and turning the world into something distant and muted. Fiona had stopped crying, but the damage showed mascara streaked, eyes red, the butterfly mask askew on her face. "Where will you go?" I asked. "After all this comes out?" "Nowhere good. Probably jail, once Detective Vale connects all the dots." She pulled off the mask, revealing a face younger than I'd expected. Mid-30s, with fine lines around her eyes that spoke of smiling before Julian had taught her darker expressions. "I deserve it." Maybe. But my phone buzzed before I could finish the thought. Luna, the babysitter. "I need to take this." "Ethan?" Luna's voice carried panic underneath professional calm. "The kids are asking for their mom. Noah's been crying for an hour, and Zoe keeps asking why you and Elena aren't home yet. I've tried everything. I'm coming. 20 minutes." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of choices catching up. "Tell them Daddy's on his way." Fiona was already opening the car door. "Go. Your kids need you more than I need absolution." "Wait." I pulled out a business card Detective Vale's, which she'd pressed into my hand days ago with instructions to call if I needed anything. "Turn yourself in. Cooperate fully. Maybe it'll help when charges come." She took the card, studying it like a map to somewhere she'd never wanted to go. "Will it help your wife? What I tell them about Julian?" "I don't know. Probably not." I started the engine. "But it might help the next woman who thinks Julian's offering transformation instead of destruction." "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About Elena, about all of it. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but it's a start." I pulled out of the parking spot, leaving her standing in mist and the drum's fading pulse. "That's all any of us can offer. Just starts toward something better." Luna met me at the door, relief flooding her features. "Thank God. They've been—" "I know. I'm sorry." I moved past her into the living room where Zoe sat clutching her stuffed rabbit, and Noah lay on the couch, tear-stained and exhausted. "Hey, my loves." "Daddy!" Zoe launched herself at me, her 7-year-old body all sharp elbows and fierce need. "Where's Mommy? Why won't anyone tell me what's wrong?" I knelt, pulling both kids close, breathing in their shampoo and innocence and the reality that existed beyond my rage. "Mom's sick right now. She's staying with Grandma so she can get better." "Is she going to die?" Noah's voice, so small it broke something in my chest. "No, buddy. No one's dying. She needs some time to heal from something that happened. And she misses you both so much." "Can we call her?" Zoe asked, her rabbit crushed between us. "Please?" I looked at Luna over their heads, seeing her concern and understanding. She'd been our babysitter for 5 years, had watched our family through happy times, and knew something had fractured now. "Let me call and see if she's awake," I said, pulling out my phone. "You two wait here." In the kitchen, I stared at Elena's contact information. We hadn't spoken since the hospital, hadn't exchanged anything beyond a brief text that she'd arrived at her mother's safely. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. "Ethan? The kids need to hear your voice. Are you able to talk to them?" Silence. Then, "Put them on." I returned to the living room, setting the phone on speaker. "Mom's here, loves." "Mommy!" Zoe grabbed the phone. "When are you coming home? I miss you so much, and Noah's been crying, and Daddy looks so sad." "Oh, baby." Elena's voice cracked. "I miss you too, both of you. So much it hurts." "Then come home." Noah added his voice to the plea. "Please, Mommy, we'll be good. We'll help with everything." "It's not about being good. You're both perfect." She was crying now. I could hear it underneath the words. "I just need a little more time to get better, and then I'll see you. I promise." "Do you promise?" Zoe asked, her voice carrying the weight of every broken promise she'd ever experienced. Really promise. Really promise. I love you both to the moon and back again. They talked for 10 more minutes about school, about Halloween candy distribution, about the rabbit's new dress that Zoe had sewn from fabric scraps. Normal things that existed in a world where marriages didn't shatter and parents didn't carry ritual scars. When they finally let me take the phone back, Luna was already herding them toward bedtime. Come on, loves. Let's get teeth brushed while your dad finishes talking to your mom. I waited until their footsteps faded upstairs before lifting the phone to my ear. Elena? Thank you. She sounded exhausted. For calling. For letting me. They need you. Even if I'm not sure what I need anymore. I know. And I understand if you can't, if we can't. She took a shaky breath. Detective Vale came by today. Asked about Julian's operation. About Fiona. About whether I'd seen anything that suggested other victims. What did you tell her? Everything. The cameras I noticed too late, the way Julian talked about transformation, the sense that this was all choreographed, even while he made it feel spontaneous. A pause. She said there were 81 files. 81 women he recorded. I know, Fiona told me. You saw Fiona? The question carried weight, jealousy, fear, confusion, all braided together. I stopped, unable to admit what I'd almost done. I was going to seduce her, get revenge by making Julian watch someone take what was his. But when I got there, when I saw that she was just another victim he'd weaponized, I couldn't do it. Oh, Ethan. Relief colored her voice. Thank God. If you'd become him, if you'd let this poison you into, it already poisoned me. I spent days planning revenge, imagining hurting someone else to balance what you did to me. My throat tightened. But sitting with the kids just now, hearing them cry for you, I realized revenge doesn't fix broken things, it just breaks more things. So what happens now? To us? I don't know. Honest answer. Maybe the only one I had. I'm still angry, still hurt, still seeing you with him every time I close my eyes. But I'm also tired of being angry. Tired of letting Julian Noir control what I become. We could try counseling. After the legal stuff settles. If you're willing. Maybe. I heard Luna coming back downstairs. I need to go. The kids are settled, but... Ethan? One more thing. Her voice dropped to barely audible. I saw the footage. Detective Vale showed me what Julian recorded, and watching myself make those choices, I understand why you wanted revenge, why you wanted to hurt someone the way I hurt you. What are you saying? I'm saying I would have understood, if you'd done it, if you'd needed to hurt Fiona or Julian or anyone else to survive this. A soft sob. I'm saying I've already forgiven you for the thing you almost did because I know what it's like to make terrible choices in the name of feeling something other than dead inside. The words should have offered comfort. Instead, they just highlighted how far we'd both fallen from the people we'd been before Halloween's masks showed us our worst selves. Good night, Elena. Good night, Ethan. Kiss the kids for me. I ended the call as Luna entered, her coat already on. They're asleep. Finally. Thank you for everything. She studied me with the frankness of someone who'd seen me at my best and was now witnessing my worst. Are you okay? Really? No? But I'm working on it. Good. Because those kids upstairs need you to be more than your anger. They need you to show them how people survive bad things without becoming bad themselves. She left with that wisdom hanging in the air, and I locked the door behind her before climbing the stairs to check on Zoe and Noah. Both slept peacefully, their faces smooth in the nightlight's glow, unaware of how close I'd come to destroying what little remained of our family's foundation. I stood in their doorway for a long time, watching them breathe, letting their innocence remind me that some things were worth fighting for even when everything else had turned to ashes. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Detective Vale gave me your contact. This is Fiona. I'm turning myself in tomorrow. Thank you for not becoming what Julian made me. You're stronger than I was. I typed a response, then deleted it. Then typed another. You're stronger than you think. Good luck. Downstairs I found the serpent pendant and wedding rings I'd thrown away and then reclaimed, held them in my palm, feeling their weight, their promise, Their accusation? I didn't put my ring back on. Wasn't ready for that. But I didn't throw them away either. Just set them on the mantel next to a photo of our family from last year's Halloween, all of us smiling, costumeless, happy in our ordinary life that we hadn't known was already beginning to fracture. Outside, the festival drums had faded. The city settled into post-Halloween normalcy, and I sat in darkness, wondering if Elena and I could ever find our way back to something resembling love, or if some masks, once removed, revealed damage too profound for healing. Chapter 7. Breaking the lust detective veil called at 7 a.m., her voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who hadn't slept. "Mr. Caldwell, I need you to come to the precinct. There's footage you should see." I'd been awake for hours anyway, watching dawn turn the windows from black to gray while replaying every conversation, every choice, every moment since Halloween. The kids slept upstairs, their breathing audible through the monitor I'd brought downstairs out of some paranoid need to confirm they were still safe, still innocent, still untouched by the darkness their parents had invited in. "Footage of what?" "Your wife, the ritual chamber, the full recording." A pause that felt weighted. "I think it'll change your understanding of what happened that night." My stomach dropped. "I don't want to see. You need to see it. Trust me." Her voice softened with something like compassion. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important, if it wouldn't shift things. Shift things. As if my world wasn't already shattered beyond recognition. Give me an hour. I need to arrange care for the kids." Luna arrived 40 minutes later, taking one look at my face and asking no questions. Just pulled me into a quick hug and whispered, "Whatever it is, you'll survive it. You're stronger than you think." I wished I believed her. The precinct's tech lab felt like a confession booth designed by people who'd forgotten what mercy looked like. Fluorescent lights washed everything in sickly brightness. Computer screens lined the walls, each displaying frozen frames from Julian's collection, 81 women caught in moments they'd never consented to having immortalized. Detective Vale waited beside a monitor positioned away from the others, offering at least the illusion of privacy. Officer Kai Chen stood nearby, his expression carefully neutral, but his body language protective, like he was prepared to catch me if I fell. "Before we start," Vale said, "I want you to understand what you're about to see. It's explicit, it's painful, and it contradicts some assumptions you've made about your wife's choices that night. Just show me." My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. She clicked play. The footage began like all the others I'd imagined in my darkest moments, Elena entering the chamber, looking around with curiosity rather than fear. Julian's arrival, perfectly choreographed. The wine, the conversation, the slow progression from talking to touching to something more dangerous. I forced myself to watch, forced myself to see my wife's face as Julian seduced her with words designed to exploit exactly the wounds our marriage had inflicted. Forced myself to witness the moment she made the choice that would scar us both. "I shouldn't be here," Elena whispered on the screen. "And yet you are. Because some part of you knows that shouldn't is just another cage you've been living in." My hands clenched into fists. This was what I'd expected confirmation of her betrayal, visual evidence of her surrender. But then the footage continued past where my imagination had stopped. Julian producing the silk scarves with that theatrical flourish. Elena's momentary hesitation longer than I'd given her credit for, her body language screaming uncertainty even as she allowed herself to be positioned on the platform. "This is just symbolic, right?" Her voice, smaller now, nervous. "Everything here is symbolic. Trust me." The first restraint tightened. Elena's body stiffened. "Maybe we should—" "Shh! You're doing beautifully. Just let go. Let me guide you through this transformation." The blade appeared, and Elena's entire demeanor changed from willing participant to something else entirely. "Wait. Stop. I don't want—" "You consented to the full ritual, remember? Stopping now would invalidate everything. You'd leave marked by failure rather than courage." "No, I'm serious. I need you to stop." Julian's hand covered her mouth, not violently, but firmly enough to muffle her protests into sounds that could be mistaken for passion by anyone who wanted to misinterpret them. I watched, couldn't look away as my wife pulled against the restraints, as her head shook in clear refusal, as tears leaked from behind her mask, while Julian continued the ritual as if her resistance was just part of the performance. You're so beautiful like this. Completely exposed, completely honest. This is who you really are beneath all the lies of domesticity. The blade moved. Elena's body convulsed with pain that looked nothing like pleasure. Her muffled voice, was she screaming, begging? The camera caught everything except the audio beneath Julian's hand. When he finally released her mouth, her first words were, "Stop, please stop. This isn't what I wanted." "But it's what you need. You'll understand once the endorphins hit." "No! Let me go! I didn't consent to this." "You walked in willingly. You drank the wine. You let me tie you down. Those are choices, Elena. You can't unmake them now just because reality doesn't match fantasy." She fought then. Really fought, pulling so hard against the silk restraints that I could see them cutting into her wrists. Her voice rising despite Julian's attempts to quiet her, screaming for him to stop, screaming that she'd made a mistake, screaming the footage cut out. Just stopped mid-scream, the timestamp jumping forward 15 minutes to show Elena untied and curled on the platform, blood on her thighs, tears streaming down her face while Julian packed his implements away with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this before. "That's enough?" Vale said, pausing the playback. "The rest is just cleanup. Him telling her it was her fault for not trusting the process, her stumbling out of the chamber. You don't need to see that." But I'd already seen too much. Seen everything that shattered the story I'd been telling myself. Elena hadn't chosen to be marked. She'd chosen to enter the chamber, chosen to drink the wine, chosen to let herself be restrained, all choices I'd held against her like weapons. But the marking itself? The cuts that scarred her? Those she'd tried to stop, had begged to prevent, had fought against with everything she had while Silk and Julian's psychological manipulation held her in place. She said no. The words came out broken. She said no, and he didn't stop. Multiple times, Kai confirmed. And the audio analysis shows genuine distress, not role play. This wasn't consensual BDSM that went wrong. This was assault disguised as ritual. Why didn't she tell me? Why did she let me think? My throat closed around the question. "Shame," Vale said softly. "Victims often carry guilt for the choices that led them to the assault, even when the assault itself was clearly non-consensual. Your wife probably blamed herself for entering that chamber, for trusting him, for not fighting harder or screaming louder. I blamed her too. The admission tasted like poison. I stood in her hospital room and told her she'd destroyed us, told her she'd chosen his blade over my love. And all the while, she was carrying this. The lab suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. I stood abruptly, needing space, needing to breathe, needing to outrun the realization of what I'd done. "Mr. Caldwell." Vale moved into my path, her hand on my shoulder, stopping me from bolting. "This changes things legally. We can charge Julian with assault now, potentially sexual assault depending on what else happened in that missing 15 minutes. But more importantly, this changes things for your marriage." "How?" "I've already got the things I said to her, the revenge I almost took. I became exactly what I accused her of being." "Almost," Vale emphasized. "You walked away from Fiona. You chose not to hurt someone else even when you thought you had justification. That matters. Does it? Does it matter when Elena's been carrying this alone while I nursed my wounded pride? It matters because you can choose differently now. You can go to your wife and apologize. You can build something new from the truth instead of letting Julian's manipulation poison you both forever." I looked at the frozen image on the screen, Elena's face, mid-scream, caught in the worst moment of her life. A moment I'd spent days assuming she'd wanted. "She tried to tell me," I said, "at the hospital. She said the line between consent and assault got blurred, that she'd walked in willingly but wanted to run out screaming. I didn't believe her. Thought she was making excuses." "Believe her now," Kai said. "And for what it's worth, your initial response wasn't unusual. Partners often struggle when the situation is ambiguous. When there's clear rape, everyone knows how to react. But when consent exists initially and then gets violated, when the victim made choices that led them there, it's messy, it's complicated. And it's okay that you needed to see this to understand. Maybe. Or maybe I was just weak, too caught up in my own pain to see my wife suffering. I need to go to her. Right now. Wait. Vale pulled out a flash drive, placing it in my hand. Take this. It's a copy of the footage, legal copy, part of discovery for the case. Show it to Elena. Let her see that someone believes her, that there's evidence of what really happened. Sometimes victims need that validation to start healing. I closed my fist around the drive, its weight insignificant, but its meaning crushing. Will this be enough? To convict him? Combined with Nadia Voss's testimony, Fiona Chen's cooperation, and the 80 other files showing pattern? Yes, Julian Noir is going to prison for a very long time. She met my eyes. Your wife will get justice. The question is whether you two can get healing. I didn't have an answer. Could only feel the desperate need to reach Elena, to take back every cruel word, to show her that I finally understood. Thank you, I managed, for making me see. Thank your wife, Vale said. She's the one who survived it. The drive to Elena's mother's house passed in a blur of panic and desperate planning. What would I say? How could I possibly apologize for the depth of my cruelty, for abandoning her when she needed me most, for planning revenge against Julian's associates while she suffered alone? I pulled into the driveway of the modest craftsman bungalow where Elena had grown up, where she'd fled to escape both Julian's assault and my accusations. The jack-o'-lanterns on the porch had rotted slightly, their grins turning sinister with decay. Halloween's promise of transformation had curdled into something darker for everyone it touched. My hand shook as I knocked. Elena's mother, Margaret, though I'd called her Maggie since our wedding, opened the door, her expression cycling from surprise to suspicion to something like hope. Ethan, I wasn't expecting... I need to see her. Please. I know I don't deserve to, but she's in the garden. Been out there every morning since she arrived, just sitting. Maggie's voice carried concern and anger in equal measure. Whatever you came to say, think carefully. She's more fragile than I've ever seen her. I came to apologize, to show her something that changes everything. Maggie studied me for a long moment, then stepped aside. Gardens through the back. Don't make me regret letting you in. I found Elena on a wooden bench beneath a dying maple, wrapped in a wool blanket despite the mild morning. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, and even from behind, I could see how small she'd become, how diminished. Elena? She turned, and the hope that flashed across her face before she could hide it broke something in my chest. Ethan, what are you doing here? I saw the footage. I moved closer, slowly, like approaching something wounded and wild. The full footage from the ritual chamber. Detective Vale showed me. The hope died, replaced by shame and something like terror. Oh, God. You saw me let him tie me down. Saw me make all those choices that led to... I saw you say no. My voice cracked. I saw you beg him to stop. I saw you fight with everything you had while he told you that your choices earlier meant you'd consented to all of it. Elena's face crumpled. But I did consent, initially. I walked in there wanting I don't even know what I wanted. But something that wasn't our life. And by the time I realized it wasn't what he promised, it was too late to take it back. That's not how consent works. I knelt in front of her, taking her hands in mine so cold, even wrapped in the blanket. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to say no at any point. And when someone doesn't stop when they hold you down and continue despite your refusal, that's assault, Elena. That's not on you. You don't understand. If I hadn't gone with him in the first place, then he would have found another way. He'd been hunting you for 6 months. Fiona told me. This was planned, calculated, designed to exploit weaknesses he'd deliberately identified. You didn't stumble into it. You were selected and stalked and manipulated by someone who's done this to at least 80 other women. Her tears came harder now. I'm still the one who walked in. Still the one who let myself be tied down. Still the one who... You're still the one who said no and was violated anyway. That's the truth, Elena. Not the story I told myself because I was too caught up in my own pain to see yours. I pulled out the flash drive, holding it between us. Vale gave me this. It's a copy of the footage, legal evidence for the case. But she thought maybe you needed to see it too. To remember that what happened wasn't your fault, that there's proof of your resistance. Elena stared at the drive like it was a live snake. I can't watch that again. Can't see myself like that. You don't have to. I watched it for both of us, and I'm telling you, believing you, that what happened in that chamber was assault. That Julian Noir is a predator who weaponized festival culture to hurt people. That you survived something horrific and I made it worse by treating you like a criminal instead of a victim. But I still betrayed you by going there at all. Still broke our vows by wanting to feel seen, to escape routine. Elena, those are human desires. They don't justify what happened to you. They don't make his assault somehow your fault. I squeezed her hands, feeling them tremble. I'm so sorry. Sorry for every cruel word, every accusation, every moment I let my pride blind me to your suffering. I became another person hurting you when you needed protection. Ethan. Let me finish, please. I took a shaking breath. I almost became him. I almost seduced Fiona to hurt Julian the way he hurt us. I planned it, arranged it, was ready to film everything just like he did. The only reason I didn't was... My throat closed. Was seeing that she was another victim, another casualty of his manipulation. And I realized that revenge wouldn't fix what broke. It would just break more things. Elena pulled one hand free, touching my face with fingers that felt like ice. You didn't do it, though. That's what matters. You walked away. I walked away from her. But I didn't walk away from you. I abandoned you in that hospital room with accusations instead of comfort. I took off my ring and threw away our symbols and told you we were done. And all the while, you were carrying the truth of what really happened. Alone, ashamed, probably wondering if you'd imagined your own resistance. I did wonder, she admitted, her voice barely audible. I kept thinking maybe I did consent more than I remember. Maybe the alcohol or the festival atmosphere confused my memories. Maybe I wanted it and just regretted it after. The footage doesn't lie, you said no. Clearly, repeatedly, desperately. And he didn't stop. I stood, pulling her up with me, wrapping her in an embrace that felt like coming home after years lost. I believe you, Elena. Finally, fully, I believe you. And I'm so sorry it took video evidence for me to hear what you tried to tell me. She collapsed against me, sobs racking her body with the force of everything she'd been holding back. I held her through it, feeling her pain like physical blows, understanding too late how deeply Julian's manipulation had poisoned both of us. Is there any way we can come back from this? She finally asked, her voice muffled against my chest. Or did we break too thoroughly? I don't know, I admitted. I know I want to try, want to find counseling, do the work, rebuild trust in both directions. I know I love you never stopped, even in my worst moments. But I also know that wanting something isn't enough to fix it. What about the kids? She pulled back slightly, looking up at me with eyes that held both hope and terror. They need us whole, not just patched together. They need us trying, need us showing them that people can survive terrible things and choose healing over bitterness. I touched her face, wiping away tears. I told them you were getting better, that you missed them, that you'd see them soon. Soon, she repeated. How soon? Whenever you're ready. There's no pressure. You heal at your own pace, and I'll wait. I'll be here, doing my own healing work, becoming someone worthy of a second chance. You're already worthy, she whispered. You came back, apologized, believed me. That's more than I dared hope for. It's the minimum of what you deserved. I pressed my forehead to hers, breathing in her familiar scent beneath her mother's floral soap. I'm going to spend a long time making up for the maximum pain I caused. We stood like that for a long time, holding each other in a garden where summer flowers had died and fall leaves scattered like festival confetti. Holding each other while beginning the slow, painful work of transformation, not through ritual blades or revenge, but through truth and forgiveness and the terrifying choice to try again. Eventually, Maggie appeared at the back door. Everything okay out here? Yes, Elena called back. her voice stronger. Better than okay. Ethan's staying for lunch if that's all right. I'll set another place. Over sandwiches and Maggie's homemade soup, Elena told me what had happened in the days since the hospital. Detective Vale's visits, the revelation about Julian's collection, the knowledge that 80 other women carried similar scars. Nadia Voss reached out, Elena said quietly. Through Vale. She wanted me to know that what happened to me, the confusion about consent, the shame she felt it too. That attacking Julian wasn't about justice so much as trying to reclaim something he'd stolen. Did it help? Talking to another victim? Yes and no. It helped to know I wasn't alone, wasn't uniquely weak or stupid. But it also... She set down her spoon. It also showed me how easy it is to let trauma transform you into something dark. Nadia became violent. You almost became vengeful. I don't know what I became. Someone smaller. Someone terrified of her own choices. We're all still becoming, I said. This isn't finished. Won't be for a long time. My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Vale. Julian Noir formally charged. Multiple counts assault, recording without consent, operating criminal enterprise. Fiona's testimony sealed it. Thought you'd want to know. I showed Elena the message. Watched relief and something more complex cross her face. He's not getting away with it, she said. I didn't think justice doesn't always arrive, but this time it did. Because of Nadia. Because she attacked him first, which led to the investigation, which uncovered everything. Elena's laugh held a bitter edge. She gets charged with a crime while saving countless future victims from him. How is that fair? Vale's advocating for leniency. She'll probably get community service, mandatory counseling. The prosecutor understands the context. I hope so. She deserves, Elena paused. Actually, I don't know what she deserves. Justice? Mercy? Both? Both, Maggie interjected from the sink. Anyone who stops a predator deserves both. We finished lunch with careful conversation about mundane things, the kids' school projects, the approaching Thanksgiving holiday, whether the furnace at home needed servicing. Normal talk that felt revolutionary after the intensity of recent days. As I prepared to leave, Elena walked me to my car. Thank you, she said, for coming, for believing me, for not giving up on us. Thank you for surviving. I pulled out the wedding rings and serpent pendant from my pocket. I'd been carrying them since the hospital, unable to discard them completely. I'm not asking you to put these on yet, but I'm keeping them safe, for when we're ready. Elena touched the pendant, tears threatening again. You gave me this on our 10th anniversary, said the serpent represented transformation and rebirth. Fitting, isn't it, given everything? Maybe. She closed my hand around the jewelry. Keep them a bit longer, until we've both transformed enough to deserve them again. I kissed her forehead, chaste and tentative. I'll call tonight. The kids will want to talk to you. I'll be here. And Ethan? Tell them Mommy's getting better, that I'll see them soon, that I love them more than all the stars in the sky. I will. Driving away, I watched her in the rearview mirror, standing in her mother's driveway, wrapped in that blanket, looking small but somehow stronger than before, broken but healing, scarred but not destroyed. We had a long way to go. Counseling to arrange, trust to rebuild, trauma to process individually and together. The kids would need careful explanations, delivered in age-appropriate pieces. Our families would need to be told something, not everything, but enough. But for the first time since Halloween, I felt something other than rage or despair. I felt hope. Fragile and tentative, but real. Hope that maybe love could survive even the deepest wounds. Hope that transformation didn't require blades, just courage and truth and the willingness to choose each other again, deliberately this time, with full knowledge of what that choice meant. My phone buzzed again. This time a text from Fiona. Vale says the footage will convict him. Thank you for not hating me into silence, for helping me find the courage to tell the truth. I typed back, you helped more people than you hurt by coming forward. That counts for something. Her response came immediately. Not enough, but maybe a start. A start. That's all any of us could offer. Just starts towards something better. Chapter 8. Lust and Retribution. Marcus Voss had spent 2 years learning to live with ghosts. The house still carried Nadia's presence in 1,000 small ways, her handwriting on the recipe cards in the kitchen, the indent on her side of the couch that refused to disappear despite new cushions, the faint scent of her perfume that lingered in the master bedroom closet like an accusation. He should have moved. Should have sold the place and started fresh somewhere that didn't echo with memories of the woman who'd betrayed him. But moving felt like admitting defeat, like acknowledging that Julian Noir's festival had destroyed not just his marriage but his entire life. So he stayed, alone with the ghosts and the anger and the children who visited every other weekend, asking questions he didn't know how to answer. The knock came just after 9 on a Tuesday morning. Marcus had taken the day off work, something he did increasingly often, his dedication to the law firm crumbling under the weight of caring about anything beyond basic survival. Through the peephole, he saw 2 people, Detective Cassandra Vale and a younger officer whose badge read Parker. His stomach dropped. Police at the door meant something had happened. To the kids? To Nadia? Mr. Voss? Vale's voice carried professional gravity. We need to speak with you about your ex-wife. He opened the door, not bothering to hide the alarm. Is she hurt? Are the kids? Your children are fine. They're with your sister as scheduled. Vale's expression softened slightly. But Nadia, there's been an incident. May we come in? The living room still bore Nadia's decorating choices, autumn colors, warm textures, the kind of cozy environment she'd cultivated before Julian Noir had taught her that comfort was a cage. Marcus gestured them to the couch while he remained standing, unable to settle. What kind of incident? Your ex-wife attacked a man named Julian Noir 4 days ago. She's been in custody since turning herself in. Vale pulled out a tablet, her movements precise. I'm here because the investigation into Mr. Noir uncovered some information about what happened to your marriage, information you should have had 2 years ago. I know what happened. Nadia had an affair with some festival predator. Let him mark her during some ritual. I found the footage and filed for divorce. The words came out automatic, worn smooth by repetition. What else is there to know? Officer Parker, a woman about Nadia's age, Marcus noted, leaned forward. Mr. Voss, what if I told you the footage you saw didn't show the full story, that Nadia was assaulted rather than unfaithful? The word hit like a physical blow. Assaulted? No, I saw she went with him willingly. Let him tie her down. The footage was clear. The footage was edited, Vale corrected, her tone gentle but firm. Sent to you anonymously by someone, probably Julian himself, who wanted to destroy your marriage as part of his pattern. We have the full recordings now, all of them, including what really happened to Nadia. Marcus lowered himself into his chair, legs suddenly unreliable. What really happened? She attended a festival, met Julian Noir, entered a private ritual chamber with him. All of that is true. Vale set the tablet on the coffee table between them. But the part you didn't see, the part that was cut from the footage sent to you, was Nadia saying no, repeatedly, fighting against restraints, begging him to stop while he told her that her initial consent meant she'd agreed to everything that followed. No. The denial came automatic. I would have if she'd been assaulted, she would have told me, would have gone to the police, would have been carrying shame and guilt for putting herself in that position in the first place. Parker's voice held bitter understanding. Would have been too traumatized to explain what happened? Would have internalized the idea that walking into that chamber meant she'd consented to everything that came after? Marcus stared at the tablet, not touching it, not wanting to see whatever truth it contained. Why are you telling me this now? It's been 2 years. The divorce is final. We've both moved on. Have you? Vale's question cut deep. Because Nadia hasn't. She spent 2 years carrying the weight of that assault, your abandonment, losing her children's trust. And when she found out Julian was still doing it, still marking married women, still recording them, still destroying families, she went back and tried to mark him the way he'd marked her. She attacked him. Marcus processed this slowly. My Nadia. He stopped, correcting himself. Nadia attacked someone. Your Nadia, Vale emphasized, was transformed by trauma into someone capable of violence. But that violence came from a place of desperate justice, seeking when all other avenues seemed closed to her. Parker pulled out her phone, scrolling to something before handing it to Marcus. A photo of a pendant, silver, serpent-shaped. Familiar. Do you recognize this? I gave her that on our 5th anniversary. Said it represented transformation and wisdom. His throat tightened. She was wearing it the night she went to the festival. I threw it away after the divorce. She's been wearing it in custody, clutching it like a lifeline. Parker's expression held compassion. Detective Vale and I have spent hours with Nadia. She talks about you constantly, about the life you had, the mistakes she made leading up to that night, the way she destroyed everything good because she was desperate to feel something other than invisible. She told me she felt invisible. The memory surfaced unwanted. A month before the festival, said she felt like furniture in her own life noticed when broken but otherwise just part of the background. He'd dismissed it as melodrama, had worked longer hours to avoid dealing with her dissatisfaction. Julian Noir hunts women who feel invisible, Vale explained. He identifies them through social media, through accomplices at their workplaces, through careful observation. Then he makes them feel seen for one night before destroying them utterly. Your ex-wife, was selected and stalked for months before that festival. Marcus finally reached for the tablet. Show me. If you want me to believe my entire understanding of what happened was wrong, show me proof. Vale queued up footage. Marcus recognized it immediately, the same ritual chamber from the clips he'd received anonymously 2 years ago. Same candles, same silk drapes, same platform where his wife had been positioned like a sacrifice. But this footage continued past where the other had ended. Showed the moments of resistance that had been carefully edited out. Showed Nadia saying no. Showed Julian ignoring her. Showed the transformation from willing participant to trapped victim. Showed everything Marcus had convinced himself didn't exist because accepting it would mean confronting his own culpability and abandoning her. Turn it off. His voice came out strangled. Please, turn it off. Vale paused the playback. I know this is difficult. Difficult? Marcus stood abruptly, pacing because sitting felt impossible. I divorced her. Told our children their mother had been unfaithful. Took every opportunity to remind her that she'd destroyed our family through her choices. And all the while she was surviving, Parker finished quietly. Carrying trauma that you made worse by treating her like a criminal instead of a victim. The words landed like blows. Marcus sank back into his chair, head in his hands. Oh God, what have I done? You reacted to incomplete information the way many partners do, Vale said. You saw what looked like betrayal and responded with justified anger, but now you have complete information. Now you can choose differently. How? The divorce is final. She's in custody for attacking the man who assaulted her. Our kids barely speak to her because I poisoned them against their own mother. His voice broke. How do I fix any of that? You start by advocating for her, Parker said. The prosecutor's office is considering charges against Nadia. Your testimony explaining how the attack stemmed from trauma, how she was defending not just herself, but future victims could push them toward leniency. And after that? Marcus looked between them. What then? That's between you and Nadia, Vale said. But she's still wearing your pendant, still talking about the life you built together, still hoping that somehow, some way, understanding might replace condemnation. The viewing room at the detention center felt deliberately oppressive, harsh lighting, uncomfortable chairs, a window that distorted sound and separated visitor from prisoner like they existed in different dimensions. Marcus sat with hands folded, waiting, heart hammering against his ribs. When Nadia appeared on the other side of the glass, he barely recognized her. She'd lost weight, her face gaunt and shadowed. But her eyes, God, her eyes still held that same fierce intelligence he'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. Still held pain he should have seen then and couldn't ignore now. She picked up the phone. He did the same. Marcus? Her voice came through tinny and distant. They didn't tell me you were coming. Detective Vale thought we should talk. His prepared speech evaporated. I saw the footage, Nadia, the real footage, everything that was cut from what I received. Her face crumpled. Please don't. I can't. I can't talk about that with you. Can't face your judgment on top of everything else. I'm not here to judge you. The words came out raw. I'm here to apologize. For not believing you when you tried to explain. For divorcing you without understanding what really happened. For poisoning our children against you when you were the victim all along. Tears tracked down her cheeks, making no sound through the glass barrier. You had every right to be angry. I went to that festival. I entered that chamber. I made choices that led to assault, Marcus interrupted. Not infidelity, not betrayal. You were hunted and manipulated and violated by someone who's done this to dozens of women. And instead of protecting you, I became another person hurting you. You didn't know. I should have known. Should have seen the signs. Should have asked more questions instead of just accepting the narrative that footage presented. He pressed his palm against the glass. Nadia, I've spent 2 years hating you. Hating myself. Hating what we became. But watching that full footage, seeing what really happened, all that hate just transformed into this crushing guilt. Don't. She shook her head violently. Don't take my burden onto yourself. I've already destroyed enough without dragging you down too. You didn't destroy anything. Julien Noir destroyed things. I destroyed things by reacting without understanding. But you? You survived something horrific and I made it worse. Nadia's hand mirrored his on the glass, their palms separated by inches and 2 years of misunderstanding. The detective said you might testify. For me. Is that would you really? I'll do whatever helps. Testify, write letters, talk to the prosecutor about how Julian's assault led directly to your response. Whatever it takes to make sure you're treated as a victim who fought back rather than a criminal who attacked randomly. I did attack him, she said softly. Deliberately. Methodically. I tied him down with his own scarves and marked him with his own blade. I wanted him to feel what I felt, what all of us felt. I wanted... Her voice broke. I wanted him to be scared and ashamed and scarred the way he made us scared and ashamed and scarred. And he deserved it. Marcus's certainty surprised him. Not legally, maybe, but morally, he deserved what you gave him and more. The law doesn't care about moral justice. Then we'll work on legal justice. Vale says the prosecutor's considering leniency given the circumstances. With my testimony, with Fiona Chen's cooperation exposing his full operation, with 81 victim stories adding weight, there's a path forward that doesn't end with you in prison. Nadia studied him through the glass, searching for something. Why are you doing this? After everything, after I destroyed our marriage, our family, why help me now? Because that footage showed me the truth. You didn't destroy our marriage. Our marriage was already dying. I was working 70-hour weeks, choosing cases over conversations, letting us drift into routine because it was easier than addressing problems. You were drowning in invisibility, and instead of seeing it, I just kept working, kept avoiding, kept pretending everything was fine. That doesn't excuse what I did. Going to that festival, entering that chamber, doesn't excuse what he did, Marcus corrected. You made mistakes. I made mistakes. But Julien Noir committed crimes. There's a difference. The kids, Nadia whispered. What about the kids? They've spent 2 years thinking their mother chose affair over family. How do I explain any of this to them? We tell them the truth, age appropriately, with professional help, but the truth. That you were hurt by someone bad, that Daddy didn't understand at first but does now, that we're all going to work on healing together. They might not want to heal with me. Might be too damaged by thinking I betrayed them. Then we'll work on that too. However long it takes. Marcus felt certainty settling over him, the same certainty he'd felt proposing to her 15 years ago. Nadia, I'm not saying we can fix everything. Not saying we'll get back together or even that we should. But I am saying I won't abandon you again. Won't let you face this alone. You're the mother of my children and you deserve support rather than condemnation. A guard appeared behind Nadia, signaling time was nearly up. She nodded acknowledgement, then turned back to Marcus with eyes that held both hope and terror. The pendant, she said. I've been wearing it. Probably stupid, carrying a symbol of what we lost, but keep it, Marcus said firmly. It's yours. And Nadia, the serpent represents transformation and rebirth, remember? Maybe that's what we're doing now. being reborn from the ashes of what Julian destroyed. Or maybe we're just two broken people trying to survive the aftermath. Maybe both. He stood as the guard touched Nadia's shoulder. I'll talk to the prosecutor tomorrow. Write testimony about your character, about our marriage's actual problems, about how Julian's assault created the conditions for your response. Whatever helps. Thank you. The words came out choked. Thank you for foreseeing me again. Finally. I'm sorry it took so long. The phone disconnected. Nadia was led away, glancing back once with an expression Marcus would spend years trying to decode. Hope mixed with grief, mixed with something like forgiveness. He left the detention center and sat in his car for a long time, processing everything. The footage he'd seen, the truth he'd finally accepted, the marriage he'd destroyed through willful misunderstanding. His phone buzzed. Detective Vale. How did it go? He typed back, I'm testifying, whatever you need, and I want to see the prosecutor about reducing charges. Her response came quickly. Good. She needs advocates. And Marcus, you're doing the right thing. Better late than never. Better late than never. The phrase felt simultaneously true and insufficient. 2 years of Nadia carrying that trauma alone. 2 years of their children growing up thinking their mother had chosen betrayal. 2 years of Marcus nursing rage based on lies. But maybe Vale was right. Maybe doing the right thing now, however late, counted for something. He started the car and pulled onto the highway, passing the exit that led to his house. Instead, he took the one leading to his sister's place where his children were staying. They deserved to know the truth, deserved to understand that their mother hadn't abandoned them, but had been destroyed by someone evil and then abandoned by everyone who should have protected her, including their father. The conversation would be difficult, would involve tears and confusion and anger redirected at him for lying to them even if by omission for 2 years. But it was necessary. Because transformation, real transformation, not Julian Noir's blade-marked version, required truth, required facing the damage and choosing to rebuild rather than letting it spread, required being brave enough to say, I was wrong, I hurt you, I'm sorry, let's try again. And as Marcus drove toward his children and the difficult conversation that awaited, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 2 years, hope that maybe love could survive even the deepest wounds, that maybe families could be rebuilt from broken pieces, that maybe Nadia's serpent pendant carried through custody and trauma and abandonment still represented something worth believing in. Transformation, rebirth, second chances, not through violence or revenge, but through truth and forgiveness, and the terrifying choice to try again. Chapter 9. Eclipse of Reconciliation. 3 weeks after the revelation in her mother's garden, Elena stood on our front porch, her hand hovering over the doorbell like it belonged to a stranger's house rather than the home we'd shared for 12 years. I watched through the window, had been watching since her mother's car pulled up, giving her this moment to decide whether to ring or use her key. She rang. Something about that choice, treating our home as a place requiring permission rather than assumption, broke and mended me simultaneously. I opened the door to find her clutching an overnight bag, dressed in clothes I didn't recognize. New wardrobe from her mother's shopping trips, probably. Armor against the vulnerability of returning. Hi, she said, the word emerging small and uncertain. Hi. I stepped back, gesturing her inside. The kids are at Luna's for the night. I thought we should have time to talk. Without interruption. Right, talk. She moved past me, and I caught her scent different perfume, or maybe just the absence of the jasmine she'd worn for years. Everything about her seemed simultaneously familiar and foreign. The house looks good, clean. Luna's been helping, and the kids they've been trying, doing their chores without being asked, like they think perfect behavior will make everything okay again. Elena's face crumpled slightly before she caught herself. They shouldn't have to. This isn't their fault. I know. I've told them that, repeatedly. I took her bag, setting it by the stairs rather than carrying it up. That felt too presumptuous. But kids process trauma through control. If they can't fix the big things, they fixate on the small ones. We stood in the foyer, the same space where I'd confronted her about the festival 3 weeks ago. where I'd found remnants of festival glitter she'd tracked in. The Halloween decorations were gone now, packed away with other reminders of how quickly joy could curdle into pain. Would you like something to drink? Tea? Wine? The formality felt absurd. This was my wife. We'd shared everything from morning breath to the terror of childbirth. And now I was offering her beverages like she was a stranger requiring hospitality. Tea would be good. Something calming. She followed me to the kitchen, her movements tentative. Marcus came to see me. The name caught me off guard. Nadia's ex-husband. He testified for her, wrote letters to the prosecutor explaining how Julian's assault had created the conditions for her response. She's getting community service and mandatory counseling instead of prison time. Elena settled at the kitchen table, her usual spot, though she perched on the edge rather than relaxing into it. He's trying to rebuild their relationship, not romantically, just as co-parents who understand what really happened. I filled the kettle, buying time with the familiar ritual of tea preparation. That's good. Nadia deserves support. He said something that stuck with me. Elena's voice dropped. He said, transformation requires truth. That they couldn't rebuild anything while operating on lies or incomplete information. So he's telling their children what really happened. Age-appropriate versions, but the truth. And you think we should do the same with Zoe and Noah? I think they deserve to know their mother isn't a monster. That what happened, what I survived, wasn't about not loving them or their father enough. She twisted her hands together. But I'm terrified of the conversation, of seeing their faces when they realize their mother was hurt by someone evil, I finished, turning to face her. That's how we frame it. Not as something you did wrong, but something that was done to you. But I did do things wrong. I went to that festival feeling invisible in our marriage. I drank with a stranger. I entered that chamber. Those were choices, Ethan. Bad choices that led to assault. I abandoned the tea, moving to sit across from her. Elena, we've been through this. Your choices, our marriage's problems, they don't justify what Julian did. They don't make his assault somehow your fault. I know. Logically, I know. She pressed her palms against her eyes. But there's this voice, this constant, nagging voice that says I brought it on myself. That if I'd just been satisfied with what we had, if I'd communicated instead of seeking excitement elsewhere, if I'd said no earlier or fought harder. Stop. I reached across the table, gently pulling her hands away from her face. That voice is Julian's. It's the voice he implanted when he told you that your initial consent meant you'd agreed to everything. It's not truth, Elena. It's trauma speaking. How do I make it stop? Therapy. Time. Conversations like this one where I remind you that I believe you, that I see what really happened. I squeezed her hands. And by forgiving yourself for the choices you did make, the ones that were actually yours before Julian took your agency away. The kettle whistled. I released her hands to prepare tea chamomile for her, something stronger for me. When I returned to the table, Elena had pulled out her phone, scrolling to something before turning it toward me. Detective Vale sent me this. It's a list of all 81 women from Julian's files. Most are anonymous, but some, like Nadia, like me, our names are attached because we're part of the criminal case. She pointed to entries. Look at the patterns. Married women between 30 and 45, all reporting feelings of invisibility or marital strain in the months before their festivals. All targeted deliberately. I scanned the list, seeing the architecture of Julian's hunting ground laid bare. He was systematic. And Vale thinks there are more. Women who were marked but never reported it, never even realized they'd been recorded. She's reaching out to festival organizers going back 5 years, trying to identify other victims. Elena closed the phone. I might testify. At his trial. Vale says it would help establish pattern, show that what he did to me wasn't isolated. Are you ready for that? For your story to become public record? I don't know. But if it helps convict him, if it prevents him from doing this to anyone else, maybe it's worth it. She met my eyes. Would you come with me? To court if I testify? Yes. Absolutely yes. No hesitation. Whatever you need, I'm here. Even though it means everyone knowing that your wife, that you survived something horrific and are brave enough to speak about it publicly? Elena, there's no shame in that, only in what he did. We drank our tea in careful silence, the kitchen clock marking time that felt simultaneously too fast and glacially slow. Outside, November darkness pressed against the windows. Inside, we circled around the larger question neither of us had voiced yet. What happens now? To us? Elena broke first. I've been staying in my old room at Mom's, sleeping in my childhood bed surrounded by posters I hung 20 years ago, and every night I lie there trying to remember what it felt like to be young and hopeful, before marriage and mortgages and in festival chambers. Do you remember? Pieces. I remember the night we met at that college party. You were arguing about Hemingway with someone who clearly hadn't read the book, and I thought, there's a man who cares about truth. I remember our first date, that terrible Italian restaurant where the waiter spilled wine on both of us and we laughed instead of being angry. I remember, her voice caught. I remember our wedding night, how nervous we both were despite living together for a year. How you kept stopping to ask if I was okay, if I wanted this, making sure consent was clear even though we'd been making love for months. The contrast with Julian's ritual hung unspoken between us. I remember all of that too, I said quietly. And I remember the moment Zoe was born, how you looked at her with this fierce, protective love that terrified and awed me. I remember Noah's first steps, how you cried with joy even though it meant he was growing up too fast. I remember 1,000 ordinary moments that built our life together. Do those moments still exist? Or did Halloween erase them? They exist. They're bruised, maybe, complicated by everything that's happened since, but they're still there. I paused, choosing words carefully. The question isn't whether our history exists, Elena. It's whether we can build a future on it. Can we? She looked at me with naked vulnerability. Can you ever look at me without seeing what Julian did to you? Probably not. But Elena, when I look at you, I also see your strength, your survival, your courage in coming here tonight when it would have been easier to stay away. I stood, moving around the table to kneel beside her chair. I see the woman I fell in love with and the woman she's become through trauma. Both, simultaneously. And I love both versions. Tears spilled over, tracking down her cheeks. I don't deserve. You deserve everything. I wiped away tears with my thumbs. You deserve a husband who sees your pain instead of just his own. You deserve time to heal without pressure or expectations. You deserve... I pulled the serpent pendant from my pocket, the one I'd been carrying for weeks. You deserve to reclaim the symbols someone tried to destroy. She stared at the pendant, then at me. You kept it. Never really threw it away. Even in my worst moments, I couldn't quite let go. I fastened it around her neck, my fingers brushing her skin. Transformation and rebirth, remember? Maybe that's what we're doing. Or maybe we're just two broken people pretending we can be fixed. Maybe both. I stayed kneeling, my hands on her shoulders. Elena, I'm not promising this will be easy. I'm still angry sometimes, still hurt, still working through my own trauma from watching you that night, from planning revenge, from becoming someone I didn't recognize. But I want to try, want to rebuild what we had or build something new from the pieces. If you want that too. I want... She closed her eyes, fresh tears emerging. I want to stop feeling like I destroyed everything good in my life. I want to sleep without nightmares of that chamber. I want to look at my children without shame. I want... Her voice dropped to barely audible. I want my husband back, not as punishment or penance, but because I love you, and I never stopped loving you even in my stupidest moments. Then let's start there. I stood, offering my hand. Come upstairs with me. Not for we don't have to do anything physical, but let's reclaim our bedroom together. Take back the space that Julian's shadow has been occupying. She took my hand, letting me pull her up. We climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling weighted with significance. At the bedroom door, Elena paused. I haven't been intimate with anyone since it happened. Haven't even wanted to be touched. Every time I think about, she shuddered, I'm broken there, sexually. I'm broken. I don't know if I'll ever want, then we'll figure it out together. I opened the door to reveal the room I'd cleaned obsessively for 3 weeks. Fresh sheets, new candles, the window open slightly to clear out any stale air. We have time. No pressure. We move at your pace. The room held Ghost's memories of rushed morning sex before work, of slow Sunday mornings tangled together, of quick encounters stolen while the kids watched TV downstairs. All of it now shadowed by the knowledge of what had happened in Julian's chamber. Elena moved to the window, staring out at the darkened street. When he tied me down, when the blade came out, I tried to go somewhere else mentally. Tried to think about you, about our bed, about the safety I'd taken for granted. But my mind couldn't hold on to those images. Julian's voice kept pulling me back, forcing me to stay present for every cut. I came up behind her, not touching, just present. I wish I could have stopped it. You couldn't have known. I didn't even know until it was too late. She turned, facing me in the dim light. Would you just hold me? Nothing more? Just hold me so I can remember what safe touch feels like? Yes. Always yes. We moved to the bed, lying down together on top of the covers. Elena curled into my side, her head on my chest, my arms around her. She fit perfectly same as always, despite everything that had tried to change us. Your heartbeat, she murmured after a while. I'd forgotten how calming it is, how it sounds like home. You're home now, you're safe. Am I? Or am I just hiding from reality for one night? Both, neither. Does it matter? I stroked her hair, feeling her gradually relax. We're here, Elena. We're trying. That's all we can do. She fell asleep like that, exhausted by weeks of carrying trauma alone, by the courage required to return home, by the vulnerability of letting herself be held. I stayed awake longer, feeling her breath even out, feeling her body trust mine despite everything. This wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. We still had counseling sessions ahead, difficult conversations with our children, testimony to give at Julian's trial, years of rebuilding trust in microscopic increments. But lying there with my wife in my arms, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. Fragile and tentative, but real. Morning would bring challenges. Our children would need careful explanations. Families and friends would have questions we weren't ready to answer. The legal proceedings would drag on for months. But for now, in this stolen moment of darkness before dawn, we were simply Ethan and Elena again. Damaged but healing. Scarred but not destroyed. Together despite everything that had tried to break us apart. I must have dozed eventually because I woke to early morning light and Elena already awake, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Hi, she said softly. Hi. I started to move, then stopped. Did you sleep okay? Better than I have in weeks. No nightmares. She touched my face. I think maybe because I finally felt safe again. You are safe. Here. With me. Always. Don't promise always. Not yet. But she smiled slightly. Promise today. We can work up to always. Today, then. You're safe with me today. We made breakfast together, pancakes that Zoe loved and Noah tolerated. Easy domesticity that felt revolutionary after weeks of separation. Elena moved around the kitchen with growing confidence, reclaiming her space, her home, her life. The kids, she said as we sat down with coffee. When should we tell them? About everything? Soon, this week maybe, with the therapist's help. I'd already scheduled a family counseling session for Friday. They deserve to understand that you're coming home if you are coming home and why you were gone. I am. Coming home. The certainty in her voice surprised us both. Not immediately, maybe. I need to keep staying at Mom's for a bit longer, build up to moving back fully. But yes, I'm coming home. If you'll have me. I'll have you. We'll have you. I reached across the table, linking our fingers. And we'll figure out the rest as we go. Together? Together. My phone buzzed Luna, confirming she'd bring the kids home after lunch. Elena's phone echoed seconds later, Detective Vale, probably with updates about the case. Real life, intruding on our fragile bubble. But maybe that was okay. Maybe healing wasn't about hiding from reality, but learning to face it together. Learning that love could survive even the deepest wounds if both people chose to fight for it. Elena stood, moving to look out the kitchen window at the backyard where our kids had played 1,000 times, where Zoe had learned to ride her bike and Noah had buried his favorite toy car, convinced it would grow into a real vehicle. "I want more mornings like this," she said. "More ordinary moments, more boring domesticity, more of everything I thought I was suffocating under but realized now I was taking for granted." "Then we'll build that, consciously this time, appreciating it instead of just enduring it." She turned back to me, the pendant catching morning light. "Thank you for not giving up, for seeing past my worst moment, for loving me enough to try again. Thank you for surviving, for coming back, for being brave enough to let yourself be loved." We held each other in that kitchen, morning light washing over us like blessing or absolution. Outside, the world continued full of festival chambers and predators and people making terrible choices. But inside, in our small reclaimed space, we were safe. Damaged, but healing. Scarred, but not destroyed. Together. And as Elena's mother's car pulled up to drop off something Elena had forgotten, as we prepared to face the day and all its challenges, I thought, maybe this is what transformation really looks like. Not dramatic rituals or blade marks or revenge taken. Just small moments of choosing each other. Of saying I'm staying when leaving would be easier. Of building trust in increments so small they're almost invisible until you look back and see how far you've traveled. Maybe rebirth isn't a single moment of revelation, but 1,000 tiny choices toward healing. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Chapter 10. Resurrected Rights. 6 months after Halloween became our before and after dividing line, I stood in a courthouse that smelled of old wood and failed promises. Spring light filtered through high windows, illuminating dust motes that drifted like the ghosts of everyone who'd passed through these halls seeking justice. Elena sat beside me, her hand in mine, both of us wearing the wedding rings we'd re-exchanged in a private ceremony 2 months ago. Not a renewal of vows so much as a conscious recommitment to promises we finally understood. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison. The courtroom rustled as we stood. Around us, Nadia Voss with Marcus beside her, their hands also linked in tentative reconciliation. Fiona Chen, who'd pleaded guilty to her role as accomplice and received probation in exchange for testimony. Detective Vale, looking tired but satisfied. And scattered throughout women whose faces I recognized from Julien Noir's collection, women who'd found courage to attend his sentencing after months of depositions and testimony, 81 files, 73 women identified and contacted, 46 who'd agreed to testify or provide victim impact statements. All of us here to watch justice imperfect and insufficient, but justice nonetheless be delivered. Julian entered in an orange jumpsuit, flanked by guards. 6 months in county lockup waiting for trial had diminished him. The charismatic festival curator had been stripped away, leaving someone smaller and older and deeply ordinary. His eyes swept the courtroom, and I watched him register the scope of his destruction, all these people whose lives he'd catalogued as trophies now united as witnesses against him. He looked at Elena. She stared back, unflinching. The woman who'd once cowered in a hospital bed now sat straight-spined and certain, her scars hidden beneath professional clothing, but her strength visible in every line of her body. "Mr. Noir," Judge Morrison began, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd presided over too many cases like this. "You've been found guilty of 46 counts of assault, 81 counts of recording without consent, multiple counts of stalking, and operating a criminal enterprise designed to exploit and harm vulnerable individuals." The formal language stripped away any remaining mystique. Julian wasn't a transgressive artist pushing boundaries. He was a criminal who'd weaponized desire to inflict pain. "Before sentencing, I'm going to hear victim impact statements. Ms. Elena Caldwell, you may proceed." Elena squeezed my hand once, then stood. We'd practiced this speech dozens of times with her therapist, with me, with the mirror. But standing here, facing her assailant across the courtroom, required a courage no rehearsal could fully prepare her for. "6 months ago, I made choices I'm not proud of," she began, her voice steady. "I attended a festival seeking escape from a marriage I felt suffocating in. I drank with a stranger. I entered a private chamber. These were my choices, and I own them." Julian's lawyer started to stand, probably thinking Elena was about to excuse his client's behavior, but Judge Morrison waved him down. But entering that chamber is not the same as consenting to what happened inside it, Elena continued. When I said no, when I begged him to stop, when I fought against restraints, those were also choices. My choices to withdraw consent, and Julian Noir ignored every one of them. Her voice strengthened. He told me my earlier choices meant I'd agreed to everything. That stopping would invalidate the ritual, make me weak rather than transformed. He used psychological manipulation to keep me compliant while he marked me with blades I never agreed to. And then he sent footage to my husband, edited footage that made my assault look like willing betrayal to ensure maximum destruction of my family. I watched Julian's face, saw no remorse. Only calculation, like he was already planning his appeal. Because of his actions, I spent weeks believing I'd destroyed my own marriage through infidelity, spent weeks carrying shame for an assault disguised as ritual, spent weeks, her voice finally cracked, spent weeks wanting to die rather than face what I'd become. But I didn't die. I survived. And with my husband's support, with therapy, with the knowledge that I wasn't alone in what Julian did to me, I've begun healing. She looked directly at him. You tried to destroy me. You tried to destroy my family. You tried to transform my worst moment into art you could collect and revisit. But you failed. We're still here. We're still fighting. And we're still choosing each other despite everything you did to break us. She sat down. I wrapped my arm around her, feeling her shake with the aftermath of that courage. Ms. Nadia Voss, Judge Morrison called next. Nadia stood, Marcus's hand supporting her elbow. Her statement echoed Elena's the initial choices, the withdrawal of consent, the manipulation and assault, the destroyed marriage. But she added her own coda. I attacked Julian Noir. I tied him down and marked him the way he marked me. The prosecutor's office has been merciful in recognizing that my response came from trauma rather than inherent violence. But I want to be clear. What I did was wrong. Not because Julian didn't deserve consequences, but because revenge through violence just creates more trauma, more scars, more people who need healing. She looked at the women gathered in the courtroom. We're all survivors here. We all carry marks, physical or psychological, from what Julian did. But we don't have to let those marks define us. We can choose healing over revenge, growth over bitterness. We can take what he tried to use to destroy us and transform it into evidence of our strength. Statement after statement followed. Women describing festivals where they'd been selected, stalked, manipulated, assaulted. Women detailing how footage sent to their partners had destroyed marriages, custody arrangements, careers. Women who'd spent years thinking they were alone in their trauma before Detective Vale's investigation revealed the scope of Julian's operation. By the time the final statement concluded, even Julian's lawyer looked sick. Mr. Noir, Judge Morrison said, do you have anything to say before sentencing? Julian stood. For a moment, I thought he might actually apologize, might show some glimmer of humanity beneath the predator. These women knew what they were getting into. Festival culture has always pushed boundaries. They came to me seeking transformation, and that's what I provided. If they regretted their choices afterward, if their marriages couldn't survive the truth of their desires, that's not my fault. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Elena's hand tightened on mine. Mr. Noir, Judge Morrison's voice could have frozen steel. I've presided over many cases in my career. I've seen defendants who committed crimes in passion, in desperation, in moments of weakness, but rarely have I encountered someone so completely devoid of remorse. So fundamentally unable to recognize the humanity of his victims. She opened a folder, pulling out what looked like prepared remarks. The prosecution has recommended 25 years. Given the scope of your crimes, the calculated nature of your predation, and your complete lack of remorse, I'm sentencing you to 35 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 20 years. The number landed like thunder. 35 years. Julian would be nearly 70 before release if he survived prison, if he wasn't granted earlier parole, if the universe offered any justice beyond this courtroom. Additionally, all footage from your collection will be destroyed under court supervision. Any copies found in your possession or distributed will result in additional charges. The women you recorded never consented to having their worst moments preserved, and they will not spend the rest of their lives wondering if those images might resurface." Relief swept the courtroom like a physical wave. Elena sobbed once, quietly, before catching herself. "This court is adjourned." The gavel fell. Guards led Julian away. He looked back once, scanning the faces of the women he'd destroyed, and I saw something flicker across his expression. Not remorse, but maybe recognition that his collection had become his downfall, that the very evidence he'd preserved to relive his conquests had sealed his conviction. Outside the courthouse, spring sunshine felt almost too bright after the dim, wood-paneled interior. Elena tilted her face toward it, breathing deeply like someone emerging from underground. "It's over," she said. "It's actually over." "The legal part," I agreed. "The healing part continues. But at least now we know he can't hurt anyone else. Can't start a new collection." She turned to me, and I saw tears mixing with something like joy. "Ethan, we did it. We survived him. You did it. You were so brave in there. We were brave." She pulled me close. "Both of us. All of us." Around us, other survivors clustered in small groups, some crying, some laughing with relief, some just standing in silence, processing the end of this chapter. Nadia approached with Marcus. "Elena, I just wanted to say thank you for testifying, for being willing to make your story public. I know it cost you." "It cost us both." Elena embraced her two women bound by trauma and survival. "But maybe it'll prevent him from doing this to anyone else." "Detective Vale thinks there might be earlier victims," Marcus added, "from before he started recording. Women who might finally get validation that what happened to them wasn't their fault." "Then it was worth it," Elena said firmly. "All of it." We lingered a while longer, exchanging contact information with other survivors, creating a support network from the scattered pieces of Julian's collection. Then Elena and I headed to our car, ready to return to the life we'd been rebuilding brick by painful brick. Home had transformed in 6 months. Not physically same house, same furniture, same kids who'd grown taller and more resilient than I'd given them credit for. But the atmosphere had changed. Heaviness had lifted, replaced by something cautious and hopeful. Zoe met us at the door, her 9-year-old face alight with anticipation. Did they put him in jail? Forever? Not forever, but for a very long time, Elena said, kneeling to embrace her daughter. He won't hurt anyone else. Good. Zoe's certainty made my chest tight, because hurting people is wrong even if they make mistakes. We'd told the kids a version of the truth age-appropriate but honest, that Mom had been hurt by a bad man at a festival, that Dad had been angry at first because he didn't understand what really happened, that both of us were working hard to heal and be better parents and partners. They'd taken it surprisingly well. Or maybe not surprisingly, kids were resilient when given truth they could hold on to. Noah emerged from the kitchen, his 6-year-old frame sporting a new confidence. Luna helped me make cookies. For the celebration. Celebration? I asked. Yeah. Mom said if the bad man went to jail, we could celebrate justice. He pronounced the word carefully, like he'd been practicing. Justice means people get what they deserve. That's right, buddy. I ruffled his hair. And sometimes justice takes a while, but it's worth waiting for. Luna appeared in the doorway, wiping flour from her hands. I'll head out now that you're back. Kids have been angels. Thank you, Elena said, for everything. Not just today, but I know. Luna hugged her. You're stronger than you think, both of you. After Luna left, we gathered in the kitchen, my small, strange family that had fractured and was slowly fusing back together. Noah's cookies were misshapen and oversweet, perfect in their imperfection. We ate them while the kids chattered about school and friends and their upcoming recital. Normal conversation, ordinary life, the domesticity I'd once taken for granted and now cherished like treasure. Later, after tucking the kids into bed with extra hugs and reassurances, Elena and I sat on the back porch watching spring darkness settle over our yard. She wore the serpent pendant, always wore it now, reclaimed symbol of transformation she'd chosen rather than had forced upon her. Do you think we'll ever stop thinking about that night? she asked quietly. Probably not, but maybe we'll think about it less. Maybe eventually it'll just be one night among thousands of better ones. I hope so. She leaned against me. My therapist says trauma becomes integrated rather than erased. That the goal isn't forgetting, but learning to carry the memories without being crushed by them. Sounds right. I'd been in therapy too, both individual and couples sessions with Elena, learning to communicate, to process my own rage and helplessness, to understand that supporting her healing didn't mean ignoring my own wounds. We're both carrying a lot, but we're carrying it together. That makes it lighter. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to spring insects and distant traffic. Inside, our children slept safely. Tomorrow, we'd wake and do the mundane work of living breakfast, school runs, work, dinner, bedtime routines. All the ordinary moments that now felt revolutionary. Ethan? Elena's voice carried a question she'd been circling for weeks. I think I'm ready. To try again. Physically. My breath caught. We'd been intimate in small ways, kisses, cuddling, careful touches that respected her boundaries. But anything more had been off the table, understandably, while she processed her assault. Are you sure? There's no pressure. I'm sure. Not tonight, I'm exhausted. But soon. I want to reclaim that part of us too. Want to remember what it feels like to choose intimacy rather than having it stolen. She turned to look at me. But I need you to be patient, to go slow. To understand if I panic or need to stop, I will be, we will be. I kissed her forehead. We move at your pace, always. Thank you, for being patient, for not pushing. Her voice broke slightly, for still wanting me after everything. Elena, I never stopped wanting you, even in my worst moments, even when I thought I couldn't finish that sentence. You're the woman I fell in love with and the woman you've become, both. Simultaneously, and I want all of you. Even the broken parts? Especially the broken parts, because they show how strong you are, how much you've survived. She cried then quietly, without shame, just letting the emotions flow. I held her through it, no longer terrified of her tears, understanding now that crying was healing rather than weakness. Eventually we went inside, locking doors and turning off lights, performing the nightly ritual of securing our home. In our bedroom, the one we'd reclaimed together, the one that no longer carried Julian's shadow, we lay down in comfortable silence. I love you, Elena whispered into the darkness. I love you too. Simple words, insufficient and essential, the foundation we were rebuilding everything else upon. Sunday morning found us at the park where we'd taken the kids countless times before Halloween had divided our lives into before and after. Spring had transformed the bare trees into something green and hopeful. Flowers pushed through winter-dead grass. Birds sang territorial challenges that sounded like joy. Zoe played on the swings while Noah built elaborate structures in the sandbox. Elena and I sat on our usual bench, coffee cooling in our hands, watching our children be children. I've been thinking about the other women, Elena said, from Julian's collection. How many of them have support systems like I do? Partners who believed them? Families who stood by them? Probably not many. I'd wondered the same thing. Vale said a lot of marriages didn't survive even after the truth came out. We should start a support group for survivors and their partners, somewhere people can talk about the aftermath without judgment. Her eyes brightened with purpose. I could coordinate it, use my experience to help others navigate this. That's Elena. That's brilliant and brave. I'm tired of being a victim. Want to be a survivor who helps create survivors. She squeezed my hand. Will you help? Co-facilitate, maybe? Because partners need support too. Yes, absolutely yes. We sat planning this new venture, something good, birthed from trauma, transformation that didn't require blades. Around us, spring continued its work of renewal. Behind us, 6 months of hard healing work. Ahead, years more of processing and growing and choosing each other deliberately. But also ahead, new purpose, deeper understanding, love that had survived testing and emerged scarred but stronger. Zoe ran over, breathless. Dad, push me. I want to go higher. I stood, letting Elena's hand slip from mine and moved to the swings. Pushed my daughter higher and higher while she shrieked with laughter. Elena joined Noah in the sandbox, helping him construct elaborate fortifications. A family, imperfect and healing and together. This was transformation, not Julian's version written in scars and suffering, but the real kind built from 1,000 small choices toward love. The serpent shed its skin to grow. We shed our illusions to build something truer. Halloween's masks had shown us our worst selves, but spring's unmasking revealed who we could become when we chose honesty over performance, healing over revenge, forgiveness over bitterness. "Higher, Daddy," Zoe called. I pushed harder, watching her arc toward the sky, her laughter carrying across the park like a promise that joy could still exist after trauma, that children could still be innocent even when their parents carried scars, that families could survive even the deepest wounds if everyone chose to fight for survival. Elena caught my eye across the playground, her smile holding both sadness and hope. The serpent pendant caught sunlight, throwing rainbow reflections. We'd survived our eclipse, that dark moment when everything we'd built seemed lost. But eclipses are temporary. The light always returns. And we were here, in the light, transformed by darkness but not destroyed by it. Together, healing, living. A new rite not of ecstasy but of resilience. And somehow, impossibly, that was enough.